Reclaim ground media, we're taking back the sound, lifting up the truth until the walls come down. Voices for the kingdom, hope in every town. This is where the lost get found. On reclaim ground.
What is going on, everybody? Greg Bolden here from America Emboldened, and your favorites, Katie Ledzinski from Reclaimed Ground Media. What's up, Katie? How are you?
I'm so excited for tonight and our guest for tonight. Tonight's lineup entirely is so right up my alley. I cannot wait. And I'm festive.
I know I was going to say you got the Christmas tree going now, and hold on. I will match you with a festive coffee cup.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, everybody. Oh, man, Katie, so here's why I'm excited for tonight. I am crossing over. So when we decided to partner, I was like, well, look, I got this national thing going. I've been doing this for a long time. Since after COVID, I started kind of the health freedom conversation with doctors, and then got into a lot of different interviews, meeting different people throughout different political ideologies, had a blast, eventually made my way to DC. But during that time, I've met a lot of amazing people that are doing investigative journalism throughout the country. And
Greg, that's too kind of you. Thank you.
I know, right, Katie? we're putting you in there now. You're doing a great job here in Delaware. But since Brian is out this weekend, I guess this week through the weekend, he said, hey, Greg, I'm going to do a crazy thing. I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. Don't screw it up. And so I decided I was going to bring my national America Emboldened brand to Reclaim Ground Media and bring some of my former guests on tonight for your audience. And these are amazing guests. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with the Gateway Pundit?
No, not really. I'm not.
All right. Great resource for news media, more conservative leaning. Victor Nieves, who is going to be our first guest tonight, is a contributor to them. And this kid, and I call him a kid because he's basically old enough to be my child. He's in his early 20s, and he is an amazing voice for a movement of pro-life, being unapologetically, so much so he became the president of this institute. And so we're going to talk to him tonight a little bit about the political structure, being a young conservative, and also having a podcast that's kind of taken off, and how he's balancing all of that. So he is phenomenal. We're going to start with him tonight. Yes. And I'm going to get you into Taylor, who lives near the border, and he has been working with James O'Keefe and OMG Media previously, telling stories about human trafficking, showing me something I'm going to share again tonight that is going to shock people. Not only does Taylor have great stories to share that are really going to open people's eyes, but Taylor also brings the absolute facts and evidence along the way. And I can see here, Taylor needs me to resend him the link, so I'm going to do that. And I also see Victor is just entering in with us. What's up, Victor? We'll be right with you in just a quick moment. So it is going to be great. And then we're going to end after we talk the border, and we're going to tie that, I think, to Delaware and terrorism. So that's really going to be interesting. We're going to end tonight at 8 o'clock, not end, but bring on our final guest, which is George Webb. And George Webb, I last talked to as he was tracking down Matthew Crooks and the Butler investigation after the attempt on Donald Trump's life. Mm-hmm. And that show was wild because he shared names that I had from my investigation that he was onto as well and was able to bring the receipts. And let me tell you, since they ended that investigation, I'm kind of curious if George is upset the fact that these names that he had the receipts for, just for whatever reason, have been let go of.
What do you mean, Greg? It was just a kid that climbed on a roof.
Oh, I think you're going to learn a lot more about who that kid was at the gun range with.
Yeah.
And his record with the DNC getting arrested and some other things. But he's actually been investigating Charlie Kirk and the assassination. He's been traveling the country and getting details. And I think anytime we have somebody searching for truth, that's a really good thing. Mm-hmm. So our guest tonight is going to be coming up here in just a quick moment. Let me just get everything situated. Kate, are you excited?
I'm so excited. Listen, I got my blanket. I got my Christmas tree. I'm here for the stories, so let's roll it.
All right. Well, our first guest here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is Victor Nieves. Now, Victor is an unapologetically pro-life young man who has great conservative values. He's been on my podcast multiple times. He's a podcast host in of himself. As I mentioned earlier, he's a contributor on the Gateway Pundit. But most importantly, the work that he's doing right now is at Life Issue USA as their president, talking about the pro-life movement and what it means for America. And I think this is a really important one, Katie. I'm going to bring Victor up right now, but I'm going to explain to you guys why I think it's so important. Victor, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I am so glad to see you again, brother. It's been so long.
Absolutely. Long time no see.
Last time we spoke, you were telling me about these great things that you had in the works that were happening, and they're all happening. I'm so glad to see it.
Yeah, we're rocking and rolling. God's opening some cool doors, so we're happy to go through them.
He always does. I mean, he's opening doors for me. He brought Katie and myself and Brian and Reclaim Ground Media together here at the end of 2025. And we're really changing the landscape here in Delaware and looking forward to having a little bit of influence across the country as well with this. So I appreciate you coming on to talk to us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And Katie, it's good to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. I told my whole church that you were coming on tonight. I called up Pastor Mike. I said, we got a guest specifically for you tonight. So say hi to the whole True Life community that's watching.
Oh, that's cool. Well, hello, Pastor Mike.
Yeah. So Victor, my argument here is the pro-choice position isn't just a legal argument. When people say that, it becomes a moral one. And I like to tell people about moral relativism and how it's really infected our belief structure here in the United States and really has disordered us away from human dignity and human rights. And at its core, when you say you have a pro-choice position, I state that it relies on moral relativism to be successful. It's the idea of whether something is right or wrong, depending on your personal belief and not on whether it actually is right or wrong. So when morality becomes relative in the society, then no human life, whether it's unborn or you and I sitting here, can have inherent value. Worth then is going to become conditional, right?
Yep. Well, you end up, it's very popular these days, especially among young people. They think they're doing something edgy or original, perhaps. They implement this, very modern, and it's not modern. It's as old as anything else on the face of the earth. But they try and deploy moral relativism. And, maybe what they don't realize or what they've failed to think through all the way is just how bankrupt that very quickly becomes. I mean, if you actually say that there's no such thing as objective truth, which in the case of abortion, it's objectively murder. It's objectively wrong to kill an innocent child. But if you're going to say that you get your truth and I get my truth and we're all equally correct, what do you think about Adolf Hitler? What do you think about Mao Zedong? What do you think about any example, or for perhaps those who, decided chattel slavery was a great idea? Are they just as right as you? Or are they just as right as me? Of course, they're not just as right as you and I. There has to be some sort of a moral framework. The beauty of the conversation on abortion is that really, as long as you agree that it is wrong to kill an innocent baby, that's as far as I don't have to hold your hand through a worldviews class. I don't have to take you through, the refutation of postmodernism or any of this other stuff, as long as you agree with me. And that's how I start most conversations on abortion, is if I'm talking to somebody who's not made up their mind, or maybe somebody who's on the other side of the aisle, I just say, listen, can we find some common ground? Can we start this conversation on the basic premise that it's wrong to kill an innocent human being? I even put it out there. I say, I'm not telling you that you need to apply this to the unborn just yet. I just want to know that we share that in common. Do we both agree it's wrong to kill an innocent human being? And if they say yes, I mean, that's the end of it. It's as good as done at that point in time, because we know that the unborn is alive. It's growing, so, dead things don't grow. So it's alive, it's organic material, it's not like a rock or something. It's alive, it's growing, and the DNA is that of the human species. And so it's very clear, when you just look at it scientifically, morally, religiously, no matter the lens, really, it's murder.
Right, and biology tells us that the unborn is a distinct human organism, right? And philosophy then asks whether that human has any type of value. So what I like to tell people, if value is going to depend on your awareness, your independence, or being wanted, then infants and disabled individuals stand on the same unstable ground that these people are making the argument on. So I'm really glad that you talked about slavery, eugenics, basically those leaders that stood for genocide, because they're all people that denied people's intrinsic worth. Yeah. And so I'm curious, Victor, I want to put up this comment because I think it's a huge compliment, but I already believe this about you. Somebody say we are already seeing a young Charlie Kirk in this young man. I would even say to people, Victor, in my opinion, you're beyond Charlie Kirk in many ways. I mean this. I told you this a long time ago when I had you on the show. You are somebody who wasn't relying on Charlie Kirk in order to have these type of views in the stance. You've been like this pre-Charlie Kirk and paving the way of this message. And so we have a one of a kind here. I don't want people, I think it's a huge compliment, but I don't want people to pave you as, oh, this is who you are. So I'm curious, you become president of Life Issues Institute. What is the number one most pressing work that you've embarked on as you started this journey?
Well, there's so many things, and we have a really exciting project for the new year. We're calling it the Case for Life. And it kind of goes back to the conversation, ironically, that you and I were just having. And it's really, there's a need, and it's really very prevalent, especially among young people, where they don't want to know what to believe, they want to know why. And they want to be able to articulate that and defend their position. And abortion really is the civil rights issue of our era. There's really nothing more pressing. It is the most divisive, probably. And I know politics, people like to say that about all sorts of, maybe it's the border, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. At the end of the day, we've killed 60 plus million babies in this country. It's very difficult to find something more important than that. And there's those who want to move beyond this, especially within some of the Republican politics. They want to sacrifice the babies and move on and say, well, maybe for political gain, we just let them kill the babies. If you do that, you have become soulless. I mean, that is to sacrifice babies at the altar of political advantage, it's not an endeavor I'll be joining you in. But so the Case for Life is anything you ever hear from the pro-abortion side, we will have a refutation for it. So anything that you might come across, any argument, because listen, the left, we like to pretend they're stupid. They're not. They are sitting there and they're wargaming this. They are constantly sparring these ideas. They're trying to come up with ways to trip up pro-lifers. Weird stuff that you might think would be really dumb at face value. If you spend enough time training at something, you can get pretty good at it. They'll try and make a case that abortion is self-defense. How do you refute that? Well, we'll tell you how you can refute that. It's actually not that hard, but we'll tell you. And so that's a resource we're really excited about. At a 30,000-foot perspective, the chemical abortion drug right now is by far the biggest threat to life. You have, no matter where you are, so I'm in Texas right now, we have strong pro-life laws. You would think, well, abortion is illegal in Texas. Yeah, not really. You can just go online, no doctor appointment. No anything. You telehealth these drugs. You could lie. You could be a husband. You could be a boyfriend, an abusive boyfriend. Think about this. An abusive boyfriend goes in to a telehealth appointment. He lies, and he gets abortion drugs sent straight to his front door. He takes it, crushes it up, and puts it in his girlfriend's drink, forces her to have an abortion. There is literally nothing stopping that. Obviously, it's not legal to do it, but there's nothing stopping it. There's very little that can be done in that regard. Right. So we're fighting the chemical abortion. New studies showing about 1 in 10 women, many people don't know this, about 1 in 10 women who take the chemical abortion drug have serious medical adverse reactions. They can become septic. Not to get too graphic with the audience here, but a lot of baby parts are left inside women. And they become septic because, sometimes people will misunderstand when their last period was. They end up getting these pills way beyond the 11-week limit. Oftentimes when people misunderstand their gestation, they're off by about 4 weeks. So instead of it being 11, you're now talking, some people are 14, 15 weeks of gestation, much different equation. And so people end up, dying from this drug, a lot of them in the emergency rooms. And so there's a lot of issues there, but the chemical abortion pill, that's the thing we need to get rid of.
There was a situation that went viral, I want to say last probably springtime, where a woman, I want to say it was in Atlanta, had taken the chemical abortion drug at home, thought she was going through it, ended up starting to develop complications. I believe it was sepsis that she was developing. Went to the hospital because of ER wait time. She sat in the hospital for hours, and I believe she ended up actually dying from that whole thing. Yeah,
she did. She actually, if my memory serves, she went up to North Carolina to get the pill legally. Yes. So she legally acquired the pill, went back. Here's one of the other things, and we don't know this for a fact in that case, but what we've observed anecdotally en masse is that those who are providing these abortion pills will directly tell women, If you have complications, lie to the emergency room. Tell them you're having a spontaneous miscarriage. Say that you're having a miscarriage. Do not tell them that you took this pill. And so then you have all kinds of other issues. Now the attending medical staff doesn't know what actually happened.
Yeah.
So they know that you have a pregnancy-related issue, but they don't know that you took this dangerous pill. So, there's another issue. It's reporting data. How many more cases because somebody might lie?
Yeah, that story turned into that she was having a miscarriage, and because of the reversal of Roe versus Wade, they were not going to help her at the hospital, and that's just not what happened at all.
No, it's terrible. And, there's so many cases like that. We have some on our website, lifeissues.org. We feature some of those stories. It's horrific. And, they always will accuse pro-lifers. They don't think some of these things through, in my opinion. They'll call us forced birthers. Well, what is an abortion if not forced birth? Whenever you take the chemical abortion pill, it's two parts. The first part kills the baby. The second part induces early labor. You are forcing the birth now of a dead child, but you are forcing the birth of a child. By the way, while we're on the topic of this, I never want to touch chemical abortion without letting everyone know abortion pill reversal is a real thing. So there are thousands of women. There have been over 7,000 confirmed cases where a woman takes the first pill, mifepristone, of the two-part series. She takes the first pill, she changes her mind. And she looks for a way, can I induce vomiting? Can I, people will come up with all sorts of ideas. And they'll be on page 7, page 8 of Google, and they're trying to find out, is there hope for my baby? Yes, there is hope for your baby. It's called abortion pill reversal. It's supplemental progesterone. Progesterone has been used in pregnancies for 50 plus years. It's incredibly safe. There is nothing, there's no data, there's no anything that would indicate there's any danger to the baby. So it's not like you have fetal abnormalities or deformations or anything like that. 7,000 plus babies have been saved through abortion pill reversal. You have to act quick. So if you know anyone in that situation, time counts. The faster you take it, the better. But we're seeing success rates of 70, 75%.
And how do they go about obtaining that? Like, let's say you just take the pill, you immediately regret it, you want to reverse it. How does somebody go about obtaining that pill to reverse it?
Yeah, you can just search up the Abortion Pill Reversal Network, and you can get in touch with a doctor. It's a prescription-based situation, but they have a network all across the entire country. So we have links to that, again, at our website, lifeissues.org. But yeah, abortion pill reversal is a huge blessing. And it's one of those things, the abortion industry, I shouldn't pretend to be surprised by this, but they always lie in basically everything that they do. And so they say that they're pro-choice. Well, there are tons of different locations. New Jersey, there's a case that was just before the United States Supreme Court where they are attacking pro-life pregnancy resource centers because those resource centers are offering abortion pill reversal. They don't want women to have this. They're saying it's not safe. They're all kinds of lies. I mean, they can't back any of this up at all, but they'll say it's not safe. They'll try and run these, pro-life pregnancy resource centers into the ground to stop them from giving women the option to change their mind and at least have a chance. It's not a guarantee, but you at least give them a chance to save the life of their baby. Why would you not want women to have that opportunity?
It's a good question. Why?
Yeah, they want dead babies. That's the truth of it. And the abortion industry makes a lot of money. We just did a show on this. One of the things that we do is a radio show. It's called Straight Talk on Life Issues. And we just did a show recorded today about how the abortion industry is one of the cogs that keeps sex trafficking going. And it's because sex traffickers will take these victims into Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has a well-documented history of just looking the other way. They have a 14-year-old girl come in with somebody who's obviously not a parent or not somebody who should be in a relationship with her. They don't care. They cash the check all the same. They make their money. That's what they're there for. If the abortion industry cared at all, they could save a lot of young women from being trafficked and pimped and things like that. But now you insert the chemical pill into that equation, this contactless, there's no medical oversight. Think about how many abusers, pimps, sex traffickers are using this as a way to keep women on the streets. Because if a woman's pregnant, she can't really be out on the corner. And so now it's not only that, but it's enabling the sex traffickers.
Victor, I'm curious, when you're talking to young people right now, I know that the argument has been kind of timeless that a gentleman has no say in what happens to a woman's body. Here's your audience right now. You're talking to a young man who's been told that, or an adult that believes that. What's your response to that?
Well, to the young men out there who have been beaten into silence on that, pick up your sword and go to battle, my friend. We are not called as young men to sit down idly as children are slaughtered? What kind of a man sits there in the face of this kind of evil and says nothing? Oh, well, somebody told me it's not my place. No, that's not an excuse. I'm sorry to tell you, that's not an excuse. Half of all babies, if you want one, half of all babies that are aborted are men. So don't say that this is a women's only issue. They're killing half of the men. That's obviously a problem. But I don't generally, as a rule of thumb, I don't find myself checking in my pants to decide whether or not I get to have a say on a moral issue. If I see some grave injustice going on out in public, I don't think, do I have the right genitalia for this? Can I speak up on this, or am I prohibited based on my anatomy? We don't do that. That's not what we as a society do. And I would say particularly young men, I mean, God made young men to have a fire in their bellies to protect the innocent. So do it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a strong statement. I absolutely love it.
And for the record, I'm not one of those women that feel that way. It takes two to tango. It takes two to get it there. So,
yes, it does. But I think that there's a talking point that has been put out in the political realm that really has beaten people into submission that you don't get a say in something.
Yeah.
And I think that it's false. It is at a basic of human dignity. And it's also the reason why I think we have a constitutional crisis in our country. When we talk about the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if people don't understand basic human rights, which begins at conception, then we can't have a conversation about why a constitution would protect those rights. We can't talk in the same framework. The Constitution would then mean something different to everybody. And that's what absolutely drives me crazy when I have conversations with people, because they don't want the nuance. They don't want the detail. They just want to go with their feelings over, look, we got to talk about, is there intrinsic worth here? And are you justifying an intentional killing of an innocent human life? I can't be silent about that. And I'm a thorn in people's side on that one, Victor, but we're 2 peas in a pod, or 3 peas in a pod here tonight with Katie with us. So that's awesome. I guess the other part that I want to know, we have another election cycle coming up. It seems to me that the Republican Party and the Democrat Party have played with abortion as a talking points issue while doing nothing on both sides. Like, the Democrats have had this opportunity since Joe Biden said the Supreme Court got it wrong to try to codify and change the laws, and they did nothing. The Republican Party continues to say, oh, we do this, but yet hypocritically in some of the factions of the Republican Party. So I'm going to ask, does the Life Issues Institute have any plans to enter the political conversation to try to help candidates better represent this as a topic?
Yeah, I hear you. So that's something that maybe down the road we'll bust out a 501c4. That might be in the running at some point. We won't have it by this next midterm cycle. But just the educational side of things, we absolutely, it's a point of frustration for me where this is just, take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. But for a long time, there were Republicans who could get a really easy A on their conservative score sheet, where they never thought they were going to have to walk the walk. They could talk a really big game. They get up on their stump speech. In a primary, everybody's the hardcore conservative, right? They get up on the stage and they say, I'm pro-life. I get a 100% rating from the blah, blah, blah organization on my votes. And that was because they never thought they would actually have to sleep in the bed they were making. All of a sudden, we get the Dobbs decision, and now they can actually pass legislation, and suddenly people are looking at them for real. And they're saying, okay, are you really pro-life? Are you really about to do this? And there was uncertainty. We had the prior midterm session, and a lot of people blamed the topic of abortion and so on and so forth. And so people started to kind of balk at it. And they started to walk away, and there is, in my opinion, a bit of an effort within the Republican Party among some, certainly not among all, but there's something of an effort from some people to just kind of abandon this issue and say, you know what, we're just going to kind of pretend that we didn't make that part of our platform for the last 40 years or something. So we definitely, we need to keep it. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you have a soul, you should be protecting life. And it just so happens to be right now the Democrat Party has made it like their mission to kill as many babies as is humanly possible. I don't really appreciate that. But generally, we're going to be in the educational side of things, shining as much light on as many of these issues as we possibly can. And if you are somebody who is publicly not standing for life, I'm more than happy to share that information.
I love it. So, Victor, where can people go to learn more? I had your website up here a few minutes ago, but where would you like people to start following? X pages, social media. We got lifeissues.org. I'll put that back up. Where can people find your important work?
Yeah, the best place right now is our website, like you have it up there, lifeissues.org. You can find all of our resources, information, radio programs. We used to even do TV back in the day. So we have all kinds of stuff. Literally, we have like 6,000 pages of resources and information, all sorts of topics on there. And that's where the Case for Life will be. But you can also find us. We recently started posting over on TikTok at Life Issues Institute. We're on X. We're on Facebook. Search the name. You should be able to find us. Lots of good stuff. And if there's ever, I always like to put this out there to anybody who's interested in the pro-life cause. If there's ever anything, I like to poll constantly. If there's ever anything that the audience wants to see the pro-life movement do, let me know, because we have the opportunity to do it. So
Victor, I actually, on that, I have something to bring up. In Pennsylvania right now, I have a lot of followers that are from Pennsylvania. There's a bill currently right now being fought in the House that would allow, based upon the way the bill is written, I've read the bill directly, it would allow abortion up until birth. And there's one very, very brave House representative that's fighting tooth and nail for this against a really tough crowd. Is there anything you can do to get involved there? Is there anything we can do just as kind of residents? I know I'm in Delaware, but these people are asking me what they can do over there. What can happen to get that bill stopped?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So people, my answer to that is going to mirror my answer to all sorts of similar questions, and that is people severely underestimate their individual impact, because you have a sphere of influence. You know at least 5 people. I guarantee you know at least 5 people. If you go and touch those 5 people and tell them to do the exact same thing, you would be shocked. Everybody thinks it's like cliche, but it's true. You get enough people who are doing that. So that's step 1. Get the churches involved would be step 2. If you're involved, church, parish, whatever it might would be, get that community in. The gates of hell tremble when the church starts moving, because we can change everything overnight. There's enough Christians in Pennsylvania. You know, that's the point of frustration to me. It's like there's enough Christians. If the church just picked up the sword, man, go to work.
A lot of them don't want to touch it, though. Like you said earlier, a lot of them won't touch it. A lot of them won't touch real issues. A lot of them aren't preaching Bible and biblical things. It's just kind of a feel-good thing, but you have to.
And here's something, too, a quick message to all the pastors. I can't tell you the number of times that I have spoken with women who have had abortions. And, you know, pastors have a very important role, and if avoiding a topic has a lot of unintended consequences, because, for one, now you have your flock who's not getting a moral guidance from their shepherd. So now they're going to, what do? They default to the culture. They default to the world. They never heard their pastor say anything about it. So it's legal, and everybody else tells me it's completely fine. My pastor has never mentioned it. My pastor talks about getting drunk. My pastor talks about all these other things, but he's never talking about the issue of abortion. So I'm going to default to what everybody else says. So that's one side of it. The flip side of it is, because pastors will never talk about it, people don't find forgiveness for that sin. There are so many people who are living with the guilt and the shame of having had an abortion, men who have paid for the abortions, men who have pressured a woman to get an abortion, women who have got the abortion. There are so many people sitting in those pews who are hurting deeply. And the good news is obviously the gospel of Jesus Christ. The cross is sufficient, but you need to find that healing. You need to come to the cross. You need to repent and be forgiven of that sin. But when the pastor never mentions it, people have literally said to me, Victor, I thought that was the unforgivable sin. I thought that was the singular thing that I could never be. The cross wasn't sufficient for my sin. And so pastors need to talk about it just from that aspect. Give it we have Sanctity of Life Sunday comes up in January. I think it's maybe January 17th of this coming year, the 18th. Talk about it. Talk about these life issues. And when you do it, say, hey, listen, this isn't me. This is what the Word of God says. This is what the Bible says. This isn't that the church is infiltrating politics. It's that politics is really hitting on moral issues. These are moral issues, biblical issues. And so, of course, a pastor should speak on that. And my final point to the pastors would be, don't fear your congregation more than you fear your God.
Yes.
Speak up on the issues at hand, and you can sleep at night. And when you get to those pearly gates, you will hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, rather than, why didn't you tell my people what I told you to tell them? Yeah. Why is it that half your congregation killed their children and you didn't say a word about it? You didn't warn them. You didn't tell them not to do it, and they defaulted to what the world told them. It's a heavy responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Victor, I am so glad that you just said that, because I think that the Holy Spirit always is at work through things. And I recently said on a post of Katie's, I said, I fear God more than I fear losing influence.
Yes, you did.
And so that just resonated with me in those words that you just shared, because, so many people think that I've been doing this for clicks. And Victor, there's no money that comes in on these type of things. I literally have been doing this because I believe in the power of information, and I believe that God will provide for me. And God's provided for me, but I've never gone down the road of influence, because I think, religion has been lost to politics as a new religion. There are many people that turn to their political leaders as the altar of which they worship. And I think that it's really great to have a young voice like yourself as president now at Life Issues Institute. And I appreciate you coming on here with Katie and I to make sure that our audience knows about it. They can find you and maybe help get involved in some of this important work in their own community here in Delaware and beyond. So Victor, once again, I consider you a good friend of the show, a good friend, a great human being, and continue to do the amazing work that you're doing. I'll be keeping you in prayer, brother.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Katie and Greg, you guys are such a blessing. Thank you for
It was great meeting you, Victor. Thank you for coming on.
Take care,
Absolutely.
Victor. Have a good night.
You too.
Oh man, Katie.
How ironic. You can use the word ironic. He used that same exact phrase.
You used the same phrase that I just used.
We were just talking about that.
I know. Now, Katie, this next guest tonight, Victor talked about the toll of sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Taylor has been down on the border, and the last time he was on the show was back in January. He was on American Emboldened, and he was showing us video and photos of what looked like, I'm sorry for the graphic description, everybody.
No, give me the graphic description. There's no way,
and I'll let him talk about this tonight a little bit, because I want to see, hopefully some things are changing, but children's underwear, drug paraphernalia, some unspeakable type of images that he was talking about. And it broke my heart, because we were allowing something under this last administration that was absolutely horrifying. And it seemed to me that people weren't talking about. So down from the border, I don't know where he is in the United States right now, but Taylor will tell us in just a second. I want to welcome, he runs RGVTruth. He's a documentary filmmaker. He's worked with many individuals, as you'll hear as we get into this, but this is Taylor, everybody. Welcome to the show. Taylor, how have you been, brother?
Doing good. Live from the oil fields of West Texas, to answer your
Texas
question.
Tonight. All right. I know you're always traveling, like Oregon, California's border, Texas, and kind of moving all throughout that area. That's why I was curious.
Well, I got to keep it moving. It's getting pretty hot down in the RGV.
I wish bring some of that heat up here, because it's been frigid here in Delaware the past.
I got my blankie because it's so cold.
Well, I'm talking about corrupt cops and Mike side guys.
Gotcha.
That kind of
all right. So I'm going to start off tonight by showing people something that happened on our last show, January 9th. You came on and you shared a story that Wall Street Apes picked up after you were on the show. They clipped our show and they reposted this. And I'm going to play this clip for everybody before we get started, because I want to do a comparison and contrast. This is before Donald Trump took office. You're going to share this story here on this recording. It's a minute for everybody. And then after that, I want to know what it's like since then. I want to know where you are in investigations. We can get into trafficking, the socialism side of things. And I have a really weird question to ask you about this specific clip in just a moment. Here it is, everybody. Listen up.
I was out with OMG, with James O'Keefe in the California desert. And April was out there too. And she's really good at finding stuff on the ground. She finds money, all this other stuff. She found an unlocked phone from a Syrian man when we happened to have a guy from Iraq on the crew with us who spoke Arabic. And we're going through this phone. There's Telegram, voice messages. It's all this stuff. Calls are coming. We charged the phone because it was dead. Calls are coming in. They're still going, hey, are you here? Have you gotten to San Diego yet? And I ran this by one of my good buddies who's high speed military guy. And he goes, dude, that's a cell. So basically there was this guy that kept calling teacher who was in Turkey. And these were Syrian men going, teacher, where do we go now? We're trying to get close to San Diego. And they go, okay, this guy's going to take you here. This guy knows Spanish and Arabic. So you're going to meet up with this guy. try to get to San Diego as fast as you can. There was no calls on there going, hey, Mom, I made it. You know, I've seen plenty of illegal aliens, Cubans and stuff come across, and they do what Auden B. Cabello calls the selfie effect, which is, hey, look, I just crossed the river. Hey, Mom. Hi, Dad, which brings more people. There was none of that. This was strictly business.
All right. So, Taylor, here's why I play in this at the very beginning. Katie and I have been investigating a story that happened here in Delaware. Not sure if you're aware of the terrorist plan that was foiled by our great Newcastle County Police Department and the FBI. But right before Thanksgiving, they pulled over a man. Well, he was actually parked in a park, and they discovered he had a plan for a terroristic attack on the University of Delaware. We have uncovered some details since then. And I said to you back in January, the sheriffs had all been talking about how we should be concerned about a possible terror attack throughout the country. We had people say, you know, there's 9/11 stuff that's being planned. We've now seen multiple arrests across this country. We saw a New Year's Eve plot. We have our arrest here in Delaware. There's Georgia.
New Orleans.
You told us this story at the very beginning of the year, but there's a connection that I want to point out to everybody that might shock everyone. Tell me about the Pakistani connection to the border, please.
The Pakistan connection.
Yeah, remember you were talking about in our interview, you had the Syrian, the Pakistan. There was
the Turkey.
The Turkey, yes. Tell us about the region and what was going on at the border, because I think this all ties.
Are you talking about the Hamas training camp?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a story it's one of those things. If you notice, if there's really crazy stories out there that are true, they seem to pop up in the news and go away. And this has been kind of in the whispers of the Rio Grande Valley for a long time. And this was confirmed by high level DHS people, confirmed by Tom Homan, that in fact, in Matamoros, which is the border town with Brownsville, that Hamas had a training camp there. They would wait for the river to kind of be low, the Rio Grande, and they would use that as a infiltration op, a training op, to get, through all of Border Patrol's CBP's sensors, cameras, personnel, canines, and everything else. So it was used as a great practice to get through the IDF's barriers.
So Katie, hearing that, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just kind of piecing it all together a little bit. I don't want to say too much about what we know about our Delaware friend here, but it makes sense.
Yes.
Especially after interviewing friends of our Delaware friend and what they've directly told us, it makes sense.
Yep. So Taylor, I guess what I'm telling you is I already know you're doing important work down there, investigative reporting. But you were onto a story that I think is breaking nationally with these arrests already a year before the FBI was starting to arrest people. So I just want to say thank you for being a good American journalist and bringing those stories to people. I wish we could have brought them to more at the time, but we're still getting it out there and you're here tonight. So my question for you is, Donald Trump's been in office now since the beginning of January. We've had the inauguration. We're 1 year in. Have things changed at the border from what you've seen?
Well, first, I just want to give April Sparks her due credit. She was the one who found the phone. So just, Yes. But I did tell that story, yes. So has it changed at the border? There's so many stories and anecdotes I could go down, but to give you a simple answer, the same BS, but a lot less of it. Yes, absolutely. The border is way more secure than it was. A lot of the magnets have been shut down. You saw that Catholic Charities RGV has just lost funding from the government. They'll be under yet another investigation. The state of Texas has been doing everything it can to investigate, but with the compadre system, and that's really the problem we have. The Rio Grande Valley is not the United States. As Mayor Villalobos of McAllen said, I like to think of the Rio Grande Valley as a place between two very powerful countries and kind of like a DMZ. It's not really America. It's not really Mexico. It's just kind of its own bubble. And in that bubble, all types of bad things have spread. So I would say the biggest thing we're seeing is the uprising of the now you have a network. There's so many people in the country. It is basically a whole They have intelligence, they have everything else, and there's a serious resistance, as we've seen, against ICE officers and everything else. They are killing ICE officers.
Yeah.
Yet every single time one of them gets arrested, one of the illegals gets arrested, it's a sob story. And that's playing up big time in the Rio Grande Valley. It's creating a very hostile place for white people or anybody who considers them an American, considers themselves an American. The racism, the anti-American, white propaganda is at 11. And so that's what's really concerning. So the border itself has become more secure, but yet we have a serious open borders insurgency in our country, and not just from Mexican, Guatemalan, Salvadorians, but just everybody under the sun. So that's really what's happening now, and that's something that no matter how hard these ICE agents work, look, you had thousands of people crossing that river. I mean, just a blitz. We can't deport them fast enough because we're going to do it in a humane way. We're not going to throw them into a river. So, the guys on the other side can just throw people in, but we have to get them buses or airplanes out. So it's just the tables are very much tilted.
Yeah, we got to do the whole due process, which is part of being in America. I'm not arguing with that whatsoever. Also believe that, our political parties have also kind of handcuffed us because no one seems to really want to have the important conversation of any type of immigration reform in order to get a pathway to citizenship that works. In order to really carve out who's coming here legally because they have good intentions and they want to be part of our country, and who is just coming here to get through the border. That falls on both Republicans and Democrats. They both have skin in that game. You have been working on some other stories about the infiltration of what I would call a socialist agenda. And we showed some images back in January about that too. Is that still going on at the border too? That there is a non-American culture that's also spreading socialism and infiltrating through the area?
Yes, there's a veil of La Raza Marxism that's really just being used by the United Nations, Agenda 2030, HIAS, all these big drivers of the invasion, basically China does it in pretty much every country it wants to destabilize. They basically start a race war. And the people in the valley are so used to that being a liminal area because, maybe their dad was born in Reynosa, their mom was born in McAllen, so they don't really see it as a border area. Now, what that does is weaken the whole structure for, let's say, terrorists coming across, not just the people that are going back and forth to buy tortillas. That's all they see. They see the La Raza problem. They see that as their home and their community, but they are opening up a giant corridor for terrorists, traffickers, and everything else. And trafficking in the RGV is not a big deal to these people. Almost everybody does it. Just about everybody is involved in some sort of criminal network, and it's so normalized, nobody really cares. And the police are absolutely protecting pedophiles, all types of child sexualization operations. The United Nations is still very powerful and still doing a lot in the RGV. Up until recently, the United Nations still had Agenda 2030 banners in Spanish in elementary schools in Texas.
In Texas.
Oh. What is the incentive? Why are police willing to protect these people?
Money. Now, I would say with the kind of La Raza groups down there, they're just very duplicitous. They got one foot in Mexico, one foot in America, whatever works better for them. They don't have a country. And a lot of people down there's great people down there, don't get me wrong. But the sentiment, what's really being driven down there is that, it's all about money. And these are people that want to put a price on children's heads, on people's heads. They just don't care. They really don't care. And it's very sad to see. It's very dark. A lot of blood sacrifice ritual cults, a lot of Santa Muerte. I live in a very, very hot area. So hot, I'm not there anymore. Police, everything else have made it very much known. You're not wanted. We'll do whatever we can to arrest you and kill you. And I'm not joking.
What would you say to the people that say satanic ritualistic things aren't real? It's a figment of your imagination. It's a conspiracy theory. I mean, you've seen it firsthand.
I would say go to a chicken fight out by La Jolla and see them sacrifice a goat before they start fighting. I mean, there's so many things that have been normalized down there. That's maybe, on the bombastic side, but there's so many things that have been normalized. And what we were just talking about, child sacrifice. What is abortion?
Yeah.
What is that really? It's a clinical version. They've cleaned it all up for the 21st century. But all these things are absolutely terrible. And children are being sold every day. There's pretty much open brothels on the road down there. Sex trafficking is huge. Drugs are everywhere. Almost everybody down there is somehow involved in some criminal activity. I mean, I'm talking to people's grandmas, to everybody. And the veil they put over it is that we're just nice old, Mexicans here, making Mexican food and having a good time. And then when you're not looking, they're like, okay, run everything through. They're not looking, it's very duplicitous. They're not in it for anything but themselves. And so for child sacrifice and everything else, you look at South Texas Equality Project, which is ganged up with Alonzo Cantu, who is the Don of the Valley. And he has been with the Clinton Foundation since '94 lobbying for NAFTA. Now, the other side of that ping pong table is the Bush Mafia that controls all the GOPs. And I have been going ad nauseum, educating the GOP on the child sexualization ops. Yet Monica De La Cruz is still having the chief child sexualization officer, Robbie Haddad, who just became a McAllen ISD Place 7 board member. He's gay. He has a husband, and they have commissioned, for surrogate children. They have paid women to have children. And in that same article by South Texas Equality Project is Oscar Martinez, who is absolutely abusing his adopted boy. They're all together on this, and Monica De La Cruz has him in his office, saying, "Oh, DHR is great. That's the healthcare system down there." DHR, so the healthcare system really seems to run everything down there. And because if you go against Alonzo Cantu, who's a big Clinton guy, the Republicans won't go against him either because Cantu gets the votes. All they have to do is bus a couple, buses full of nurses to the polls, and they win. And every DHR-backed politician wins by, a margin of like 500 to 1,000%. It's not even close. So it will never change down there without, that compadre system breaking loose. Now, HSI has been making some arrests. They arrested a McAllen city councilman or city commissioner, yet there's no talk about that in City Hall. He's still there to this day. And he was arrested for basically greasing the palms of exports, not paying taxes and everything else, and paying off corrupt cops in Mexico. Yet Mayor Villalobos, that is his compadre. This is the compadre system. They work together. And Villalobos has been going to Mexico to do these trade missions and very kind of shady things, posting it on the internet with the same city commissioner that just got arrested, who is known for being able to import-export. He has a Ropa Usada, a used clothes business where they ship pallets of clothes all over. And he is known for greasing the palms of the Mexican government.
Wow. I want to just show people, when Taylor is saying these things, it's a lot to take in. Mm-hmm. You've got an X page with @RGVTruth1 that I highly recommend people follow, because here's the deal. I'm not going to put up a ton of photos while he's speaking, but he comes with the receipts. Like, you can see the photos he's taken in his profile photo, the videos that he's been taken back in 2022 that he has on here. He will show you exactly what he's seen. He will break it down and show you what's going on in the town. So please go over to this page and start looking through it, because if you think that there's a political party that's going to save you from this, there's not.
No.
Which is why, Katie, when we talk about Reclaim Ground Media and we talk about like the mission that you and Brian have, that I'm happy to join you on, it's about the people watching right now, listening to Taylor and going, we need to mobilize.
Absolutely.
Because we, the people, are the only thing left to actually stop the trafficking.
Yep.
It's politicized. There is a real evil that is existing in this world that some people want to bury their head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's clear and present.
It is.
For all of us.
Yep.
And like, it makes me so sad, Taylor, when we've had conversation. Like, I love talking to you. You're a friend, Taylor. I really mean that. Like, from Chris Michaels, when we have you on with him and I, and now with Katie, like, you've always been just straightforward, shoot from the hip. But I think it's just, people need to understand that there are good individuals trying to expose stuff, and we can't turn our heads away from the things that you're sharing and other people are. We've got to actually mobilize a community. I mean, Taylor, you've had, and we don't need to get too far into it, but you and I both know from our work that we've met individuals that will promise us the world, but it's to control what you and I are talking about. Isn't that right?
To control and basically kind of usurp, and without putting their stamp on it, they're kind of buying all of your, all of your content. And if they do things for you, then it's like, oh, they're with him. That's why he did that. And basically, what I've seen personally, it's absolutely disgusting, and that's why I haven't been posting a lot. I've kind of just been living my life because I feel like there's a sickness in social media. You can kind of get too into it. It almost is like it mimics like a mental disorder where you're not living life. You're trying to get the views or the clicks. People aren't actually being real and being in reality. You have that, but honestly, what I've seen from what I do, because I'm not about the money. I'm about getting arrests or making things happen. And I'm about the truth. A lot of people are going to want to usurp that, use that, and they keep a carrot on the stick. And, I can make my own money and everything else, but when you're waiting for these deals and everything else, it's a carrot on the stick to the point where, I'm looking to move outside of the United States. I can't afford my apartment in, a very cheap area in America. And that's another thing people aren't talking about. What about groceries? What about all these things? Yes, things are coming down. Don't politicize it too much. Make it a humanitarian thing. Yeah. We're Americans. We need to help each other. We should not be going back and forth going, ha ha, oh yeah, New York's getting a Muslim mayor, that'll show them. That's one of our greatest cities. We should not be cheering on the destruction of our country.
Yeah.
Katie, what questions do you have?
I could listen to you tell stories from the border all day long. I'm very, very passionate about kids and protecting kids and saving kids. And so especially when you get into talking about human trafficking and the side of it where these people that probably all have kids themselves are willing to take some money and look the other way. It's a humanitarian issue. It's a human issue. And there's something spiritually not right with our society. That is a spiritual thing. How anybody could look the other way when it comes to a child and that child's life and knowing what they're going through. That's a spiritual problem that we have.
100%. That it really is. This is dark versus light, good versus evil. And it seems now the way of the serpent is almost everybody's taking a bite of the apple because things are hard. It's designed to be this way. It's designed to break you, for you to take that money to do this or that. And it's been very hard for me, but the one thing you can always be satisfied with, no matter how much people try to gaslight you or defame you or do whatever, is the truth and God knows the truth. And that's what really matters.
Yep.
Taylor, I'm experiencing something recently that I've never experienced before. And I'm curious how you have had this happen in your life. So I spent the last 4 years covering national stories. I was basically, America Out Loud Network, going down to DC, interviewing people. And most of the people in Delaware didn't pay attention whatsoever to anything I was talking about. And it was kind of nice. I had anonymity within all of this. Over the last couple of weeks, as I've partnered with Katie, and Katie has a very large profile in Delaware, there are people that have already gotten annoyed at just like little things that I've put out there. Put out something that was data centers that literally benefits anybody, no matter what your political ideology is. It's great information to have. And I'm curious if the profit from your own hometown is normally the one that gets murdered the most. Has that been your experience, that people run you out of your own hometown or are trying to do good while the people outside are the ones looking in going, oh, somebody's doing something? Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that experience.
Well, that is very unique to the RGV too. Everybody knows in the RGV, everybody knows the cricket analogy. I can tell it real quick on here if you'd like.
Sure, go for it.
It is, some people call it a pseudo-racist thing, but this is literally what Tejanos, native South Texans have told me. So you go to the pulga, you go to the flea market, there's a guy with bait for sale, for fish bait. And there's two buckets. One says Asian crickets and one says Mexican crickets. And then you ask the guy, what's the deal with that? And he says, well, the Asian crickets, you got to keep a lid on them because they'll help themselves get out of the bucket. The Mexican crickets, they'll just pull each other down. And that's definitely been a thing. If anybody knows any local towns in the RGV, it's like they just hate you, hate you, hate you. I know businessmen that basically had to go prove their business model in another city, in a big city, then come back to the RGV just to get any kind of recognition. It's a very cutthroat, weird thing. That's kind of unique. But I'll tell you this, I have a lot of buddies, a lot of people doing great things that do national and international, but I don't see a lot of, and this is no complaint, this is their own thing and probably for their own good. They're not so involved in their local city councils and stuff like that. I've just gone straight up against the compadre system, against Cantu, against the powers down there. And I also recently want to get, expose the Hispanic Republicans of Texas, which is the Bush Mafia, and they've completely locked up all the border counties. I mean, they had in Cameron County, the county chair apparently has, I think, up to 3 Democrats they've endorsed. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So yes, I've gotten a lot of heat to the point where police are openly hostile to me. I actually have I've got so many court cases. It's hard to find a lawyer, but and I have evidence of this all. It's truly dark down there, and they have truly come together against anybody outside their system. You know, they're kind of a rock right now, and they don't want anybody from up north. No HSI. Mayor Villalobos of McAllen, he's the poster boy for Agenda 2030. It's supposed to be Brownsville, but they don't really have any photogenic people. So Villalobos is the poster boy for the still continuing steamrolling out of Agenda 2030. And he's disclosing everything. It's right out there in the open. And I've actually gotten, well, we'll leave that one. But anyways, there's actually been physical recourse from some of these politicians and stuff. I mean, they're trying to punk you. They're trying to body check you coming out of a bathroom and stuff. So the hostility is absolutely open. And what I was getting back to, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there.
That's okay.
It's all right. Yeah.
If you're going to do stuff locally, don't out the Democrats and the Republicans at the same time, because then you got a very small boat to paddle. But the true people will shine.
I made a post yesterday about how I was disappointed in some Trump things, and I knew I was doing something right because I had it from both sides immediately.
Oh yeah.
That's when you know. Yeah.
That's when you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I've seen more than anything, just to give people some respite out there, something to think about, they're not attacking you, they're attacking the truth. You're just holding up a mirror. So it's people, I mean, with all the child sexualization, the GOP, the Pena dynasty, who still very much controls the GOP with the Hispanic Republicans of Texas and George P. Bush, they, Aaron Pena, who was the county chair's brother for the Republican Party, he's got lawsuits against him. He's been going into the young Republicans, offering them ride homes, doing a lot of terrible things with 16-year-old girls in the young Republicans. And when I advocated for those girls, the GOP just attacked me. At no point did anybody, they just called me, oh, you're working for the Democrats or this or that. At no point did anybody say, hey, how are those girls? What's going on with them? What's going on with the children? It was literally red versus blue, which has become a sickness in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah. The evil that exists in politics, backroom deals, the absolute stuff that gets hidden from the American public is downright frightening. And people label it as conspiracy. They've looked at research that I've done and interviews I've done and go, oh, there's no way. I am undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I bring the receipts all the time about this type of stuff. And Taylor, like that's actually a great segue for the guest that we're going to have coming up tonight. Are you familiar with George Webb at all, Taylor?
Yeah, I've been looking at his profile. I've just kind of been out of the social media thing for a while, so forgive me. But no, looks like a phenomenal guy. And I have to say, Victor was so on point. That was an excellent guest.
No, Victor is like one of the most awesome voices in anything right now. Like I think he's a great kid. But George has been doing this for a really long time. And I know he just came on, so we got to get over to him, Taylor. But I just want to tell everybody, at RGVTruth 1 on X. I know you're not posting a lot on there, but there's lots of great historical data from the journalism you've done at the border, showing the terrorism coming over into our border with April Sparks. Anything that you have information-wise you want me to put out there, you always know. You got my number. Call me, let me know, message me, and we'll make sure that we get that over. But Taylor, I appreciate you giving us some time tonight.
Hey, thank you. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast, so it's great to break the ice again. Love you guys. To have you. Awesome.
Absolutely, man. Happy Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year to you, brother.
Yes. Merry Christmas to y'all.
All right. Take care.
Bye, Taylor.
All right, Katie. This is the interview at 8:00 here that I wanted you to have, because I know you had an opportunity to do some research after hearing Candace Owens.
Oh, yeah.
And going down and interviewing people down near Rodney Square, connecting to Egyptian planes, as well as you and I had a great conversation about the DuPont family and how they might have been linked to the murder of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I showed you where that connection comes in.
Yep.
Espionage. Well, I have an expert in Washington, D.C. espionage, and probably the most qualified person to have this conversation with in the entire country, investigative journalist, George Webb, everybody.
Oh, I'm so excited.
George, welcome back to the show. It's been so long since we talked.
Yeah, it's been a while, and it's great having you both here, Katie and Greg. And And you mentioned the DuPonts. We've been talking about them for 9 years with Hunter Biden. Was back and forth with an Henri DuPont. Is that the same Pierre DuPont that Candace is talking about with the $1 billion offer to Charlie right before his death? Is that, so there's lots of stuff here with Burisma and Hunter Biden. So this is going to get good here real quick.
We're going to have a blast because we're here in Delaware. And that's why I reached out to you, because I was going, look, we have info that probably help you. You have info that can help us. We can bring it to the audience together and go from there. I'm glad you're sharing this out on your social media too, because what Katie's got was certainly going to help your audience as well. And it's going to only strengthen the investigations you're doing. Let's start quickly from the beginning for those that aren't on George Webb's page watching right now, but rather watching with Reclaimed Ground and myself on American Emboldened. George, when we last talked, you were traveling around getting the scoop on Butler, Pennsylvania, and Matthew Crooks. And I told you about this gentleman that I had named, and you said, oh, yeah, he was going to the gun range with Matthew Crooks. We have ties. He was arrested at the DNC. And then Donald Trump gets elected over this past year, gets installed as president. And guess what? We don't hear anything more about it. It just goes away. And so I would be amiss if I didn't say to you, are you a little bit disappointed in the fact we don't know more officially from a narrative, or what did you expect from that? And then we'll move towards Charlie Kirk and talk about how I feel like we're seeing this all over again. So let's start with Butler and move our way to Charlie Kirk. Are you surprised at how this all went down?
Yeah, I mean, rooftop shooting, anyone? We made fun of it for 14 months, leaving the rooftop open. And that's usually, you go back to the Lincoln thing where you have one guy who leaves at intermission, protecting the president after the Civil War's over, when they want to do Reconstruction and basically enslave the South for another 20 years. So there's a lot of DuPont in these assassinations running throughout our whole history. And I see the not following up on Uric, you reported on it, not following up on Tyler, the grooming of Matthew Crooks by DHS and his training for shooting, the whole story of him being a volunteer with Beaver County to cover that as a volunteer sniper never seemed to make it to the press. The whole congressional investigation seemed to go nowhere. It just seemed to be just the most cursory level things. Marjorie Taylor Greene commented, I know less about Crooks than I do Tyler Robinson, all this information. So I think the public is frustrated. The public is tired of this stonewalling, they're tired of this JFKing everything. With Epstein only just made it worse. And so citizen journalists like myself and you guys are really stepping in and filling the void.
We're trying to. I actually had, with my co-host on my other show, Chris Michaels, we had Dr. Joseph Farrell on just about a month and a half ago. And people can watch that on the YouTube channel. But Joseph Farrell talks about how he's going back into the history post-Civil War. And when he did this, he discovered that there was a meeting in Canada with John Wilkes Booth, the DuPont family, some of the British Crown, and he comes back to the United States and Abraham Lincoln's assassinated. And I can't help, we had this conversation, Dr. Farrell and myself. I'm going, wait a minute. You got all these influential people here in this region. You have major players, and you're telling me we can go back to an event that happened in the early part of American history that ties to these same names we're still talking about today. Is that coincidence, or is that evidence of maybe more evil?
Well, I mean, Pierre DuPont, the fifth, is the one who supposedly makes the $1 billion offer to Charlie in his last week of his life. And the offer he supposedly mafia ultimatum, the offer he can't refuse. That's the first person that Justin Strife calls, is Pierre DuPont the fifth. That just seems like an odd person to call after your boss is shot. And you remember, Justin's only in that job 8 days because he refused the Doge audit. Right, the Doge audit is why he got that job. Tyler Boyer gets demoted. So there's a whole bunch of intrigues. Naturally, you would go to the Doge audit. Naturally, you'd go to who the replacement was. You'd go and get the phone of who did you call? Why did you call them? None of those questions have been answered. And if you go back in history, that's like you mentioned, and I assume Katie's going to talk about these other things too. it's the DuPonts over and over again, all the way back to DuPont Circle, all the way back to the first Pierre DuPont did the Louisiana Purchase with Thomas Jefferson. The first Pierre DuPont was the one who approached French creditors, or French nobles as creditors to the American Revolution. Those were the same French creditors, the Bourbons, that Louis XVI had his head cut off. Pierre DuPont was a courtier of Louis XVI. Those were the same people that got their heads cut off during the Robespierre, which is just basically Pierre DuPont in a robe, right? Robespierre cut the heads of those creditors off, and the family that inherited those debts that Thomas Jefferson still paid them off was the Rothschild family. He brought Meyer Rothschild from Frankfurt to Paris to start the House of Rothschild. So the history here, you just can't get any. And before that, of course, Meyer Rothschild was one who supplied the Hessians to King George for the gold for the other side of the revolution. So these two families, Rothschilds and DuPonts, have been constantly especially the outbreak, or to keep these wars going. And here we are again, Ukraine war, Charlie talking against the Ukraine war, and then boom, here we are, Charlie's dead. So,
and there also seems to be like this French connection that keeps coming up as well. The research that I've been doing, that I'll get more into at a later date. I'm not really ready to kind of put all that, but you can see throughout history where that happens. And then I'm curious to figure out some of the Burisma stuff, because I spoke with John Paul Mac Isaac early on with the Hunter Biden laptop. And there's a story here in Delaware that I'll share with people that you can find. It's right on the website, unless they've pulled it now, I don't know. But we have a Winter Automotive Group here in Delaware. And Winter Automotive is the #1 developer in Ukraine. The same people, the Hynanskys.
I didn't know that, Greg.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I've done this show a long time ago.
On me, Greg.
No, Katie, you're discovering my work later on, Katie. That's what it is. Because I did shows on this years ago. But Biden family helped set up the Winter family in Ukraine. And it's around the same time that Joe Biden goes down and gets his congressional seat, that this friendship starts budding throughout Wilmington. Winter Ford starts growing in Wilmington, Delaware. And then all of a sudden in the 90s, they have this Ukrainian presence with dealerships. And now they sell almost all the cars in Ukraine. They do all the commercial stuff. And so when I heard about the Burisma stuff and Biden family being tied to it with the laptop, I'm going, this is par for the course. We already have the Winter Corporation that was able to make this. And again, I want to make sure that I'm being very clear. I am accusing the Winter Corporation of no wrongdoing, as somebody who's taught about it. I'm simply saying it's on your website that you talk about how you've had the success in Ukraine. But I need to point that out for people because it all ties.
Well, don't get me started on the Hynanskys. I went to Key Waden Island, and 4 days in a row, we had bad weather. Finally, the 5th day we got out there. But the Hynansky owning all the auto dealerships in Florida, right? A lot of money laundering. And I will go ahead and make the claim that all kinds of Ukrainian money laundering coming back through the Hynanskys. They bought Joe Biden the Key Waden house. So very few people know that's where Hunter Biden spends most of his time in the winter, as well as Joe Biden now. So there's a huge, deep connection to the DuPonts here, and using the Bidens as front men. Ever since Joe Biden started as a senator, going all the way back to the MBNA credit card deal that he cut. You remember and his father, the Pierre DuPont the fourth, as the governor of Delaware, was the one who raised the default rate. You know, when you don't pay your credit card bill, it used to be 12%, and that was considered usury in some states. He raised it to the default rate up to 35%.
Correct.
And all the credit card companies went to Wilmington. What did that bring to Wilmington also was the databases. Mm-hmm. And that's why the planes are landing with Candace in Wilmington, because I combine that information. I combine the credit card information with now your DNA. I combine it with your movements. I combine it with your credit cards give you more about the person as far as dirt goes than anything else. And so that's why 7 years ago when I was in Wilmington, I was saying, hey, my partner was saying, this is where the big database is. It's called Operation Blackjack. And this is the front man to this is Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and the people behind the national security application are the DuPonts.
Katie, I told you, Delaware's not ready for this show tonight.
I'm not ready for this show tonight, Greg.
As this gets out to like the 90,000 people that will watch over the next couple days through your media and stuff, and people are not ready for this. They can't digest what George is coming. I know.
This is so right up my alley. I'm fangirling a little bit, but I'm really just absorbing.
Well, so you don't fangirl. Let's give you an opportunity here. So, Katie, tell us a little bit about what you heard Candace say that led you to go investigate Rodney Square area, and a little bit about where your thoughts are with Egyptian planes and things like that. Because a lot of people don't know that you've been doing research into this and having some very important conversations. I won't reveal, but you can do whatever you want. But I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, well, when she brought Wilmington, Delaware into it, I'm like, Wilmington, Delaware? And then when she's talking about getting, the guy says that they got off the plane, they get in the black car, they drive down to Rodney Square. I'm like, Rodney Square, that's 100% DuPont's. And after the French and the Egyptian and their relationship, and I definitely have been called a lot of names from indulging in this, but I went in a deep history research of everything. And especially when you're talking about our chancery courts and stuff like that. Well, our chancery courts here in Delaware, they exist because of the DuPonts, because when the DuPonts settled here, after they were already awarded the contracts, the defense contracts with the gunpowder, and then they're switching over to the chemicals and the solvents, and they needed business to come here to Delaware, so we needed to steal it from New Jersey. So what better way to do that than the chancery courts? So that's why when she connected the Wilmington ILG airport, which I am just up the road from, I actually had my friend drive me around, and what I may or may not have sent her was actually, this is how long it takes to get here. This is the building. Across the building is this. This is who was in this building. Rodney Square, Wilmington in general, Delaware in general, is Delaware because of the DuPonts.
And isn't it interesting, George, that same Rodney Square, and I know this as a photographer because I had the opportunity to photograph one of these individuals, is home to the CIA, the FBI, and basically all intelligence for Wilmington. Isn't that just coincidental, George?
No, and I went there, and when Katie's saying 1 Rodney Square, she also means 920 King. It's the same.
That's correct. Yes.
It's the same address. And the reason why the planes are stopping there, and again, I went there in 2017. I had my research partner tell me the Joint Special Operations Command had this plan to basically create a subversive database, a national watch list, whatever you want to call it. And they were going to combine this data that they collected on the road from their human intelligence, National Clandestine Service, Mike Flynn at that time with Obama. They were going to combine that information with the credit card information. This goes back to Joe Biden starting this with Clinton presidential decision directives, they were called. There was a series of them. Remember, he was going to put 100,000 police on the street. It was 100,000 spies to collect information. And PDD 62 was the one I focused on. That's the one that Seymour Hersh focused on. But there was presidential decision directives before that. But basically, the idea was the false flag that started it all was McVeigh in '95, that the internal soldier who knew how to use C4 and knew how to use explosives, that was the big risk. And now we have to, instead of looking overseas, outward looking like CIA, we need a national clandestine service to look inward, right, and use the same kind of techniques and information gathering. And it's grown for 30 years. This has been under the Biden's fingernails for 30 years with the DuPonts, this national clandestine service. And if you think about it, if you're going to go look for somebody to arrest them, they go to the credit cards or the ATM. Is the last picture that they took is usually the ATM. And the last place they were is usually the credit card. So it makes sense to me what she reported to me in 2017. And when this plane is stopping, when these planes are stopping in Wilmington, that's the consistent thing. Everybody's arguing about who was the person they were tracking, but they're in this double loop pattern, a pair of planes. One's a wide angle, one's a zoom in. The wide angle is saying, okay, that might be a terrorist. The other one zooms in and says, okay, here's a picture. Then let's run all the thing, try to identify the terrorists at the Super Bowl or something like that, sort of Black Sunday type of scenario. But what do you do with the data that you collect of everybody else that gets swept up in that activity? You get all we had this from the Erica Kirk funeral with Charlie Kirk. It said 229,000 phones were swept up. Then we get all the license plates.
Caught that. Yes.
Yeah, license plates in the parking lot, and then we get all the other phones. We get the facial recognition even for facial systems, and all that is data. And now, what do you do with it? Right? You have it on these planes. What do you do with it? You put it on the internet so that it can be intercepted, so the other organizations and the FBI and so forth, NSA will see it, or do you fly it directly to an illegal covert database in Wilmington, Delaware, at 920 King 1 Rodney Square? My thesis is that's why the planes are stopping there. That's why it's always the last stop, right? That's always the last stop. The last stop before the garbage dump is all the places the garbage truck goes. The last stop is Wilmington for the dumping the data.
Why Egyptian planes for dumping the data?
Well, the Egyptian planes have been used. Egypt has been used as a broker of weapons from Israel because the Sunni kingdoms, who have all the oil and all the money, don't want to buy from Israel. Mm-hmm. So if Israel wants to sell, and I remember Ghorbanifar played this role with Iran, they had to get an Iranian intermediary because Iran didn't want to buy directly from Israel. So they bought through Ghorbanifar. Adnan Khashoggi played that role to sell to the Sunni kingdoms before this, to sell the Israeli technology. So right now, this Zahran, Zahran plays that role as an Egyptian foreign minister. There's other ones that she named, Mukhtar, I can't remember the name that Candace said. But we know that this plane is going and meeting with the king of Saudi Arabia. That's the most important buyer in any weapons deal, is the king of Saudi Arabia, as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned. It's meeting with the leaders of Qatar. We know the president of Egypt has been on this plane. Now, what Candace's theory is that it's flying over Cairo, but then it's turning its transponder off and flying onto the Negev Desert, which is where Mossad is based in Israel. It's a Air Force base called Nevarit Air Force Base, and the data is also parking. It's dropping it off in Wilmington for the U.S. agencies, but then it flies on to Cairo and drops it off for the Mossad at Nevarit, and that makes a lot of sense to me. She says she's going to tighten up the database, and we'll see more in the next coming days. But I think that's a big story.
I think one of the things that concerns me, I had an opportunity in D.C. back, I think it was 2023. John Kiriakou, he was on the steps with me in like the press pool, and I just find him fascinating. He's the one that outed the CIA questioning stuff and got himself in a lot of trouble at the time. But he's on record talking about the Central Intelligence Agency being able to take people out in their cars. He's on the record of talk about how they basically have complete information of anything and anyone and are able to scan and take control of any technology. And you have Mossad, that we also know really demonstrated on a scary level what they're capable of just about a year ago when they took the beepers and they're able to strategically have them all explode, taking out the people that they were going after. But that took such intelligence to figure out. Yeah, it is. But that's that's a 2 month or 2 year long slow play in order to get your enemies.
Yeah.
And I like to point this out as we're having this conversation, because what scares me is Trump has been extremely friendly with Saudi Arabia. Having this tie with Saudi Arabia, Charlie Kirk having an integral role in the Trump administration. Like, I know, George, you have spent time in dangerous areas of investigation. That's why I love following your work. The espionage side of this, or the double agent side of this, has me fearing for America. I'm just wondering, am I being too crass in that assessment, or should we be really questioning whether everything's working in our best interest in this administration?
Well, you point out Charlie Kirk did have a presidential commission with the Air Force He did go to Colorado Springs, I think 2 months before his death. There may have been a covert program to recruit college graduates in specialty areas like missile and space. Missile and space, the Tyler Robinson has this kind of heavy math and science STEM background is needed for this new warfare, which is swarming drone warfare. It is missile warfare. And there may have been because Charlie was going to all these campuses, there may have been a covert program that Tyler Robinson, for instance, was a part of, Missile and Space program, an 8-year ROTC that he was a part of. And now, once you're read into that program, you classified information. You can't give that information up, right?
Right.
So you're in it. Once you're read in, and you don't get to read out, and say, well, I forgot everything. So maybe you mentioned a very valid thing, which is there is a lot of intrigues to get people to support a war. For instance, you can read them into the Missile and Space recruiting program. Now, all of a sudden, I'm recruiting all these people in missile and space, and I didn't necessarily say I wanted a forever war, a 20-year war in Ukraine. But what do I do now? How do I back out? How do I now become an anti-recruiter for something I signed on with President Trump to be?
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's freaky because he visits near Hill Air Force Base in Salt Lake City that morning, which he doesn't fly into Provo. It's about 70 miles away. There does seem to be a lot of Mossad type people around. There does seem to be these planes that fly in there, which have these assassins. So there are a lot of things that say foreign interference, and like to John Kiriaku's point, bringing in foreign intelligence agencies to do the dirty work for U.S. agencies, right? And we'll do the dirty work for you in your country, and you do the dirty work for us, and that way we'll keep it off book. And I think I have tremendous respect for John Kiriakou, and he was a CIA agent. He was a CIA whistleblower. And so I give him a lot of credence when he says something like that.
Is there an alternative explanation you can come up with for the amount of Israeli phones on the ground at Utah Valley?
Well, I'd like to see a little bit more information. She mentioned there was about a dozen Israeli phones.
Yeah, 13, I think is what she said.
Yeah, that's a little unusual. If they all came off that plane and they were in, Minot the day before, that's a story. Yeah, that means a hit team is coming. So I really would like to see more on that. Dan Bongino is being relieved of his command, or he's leaving.
Yep.
He didn't do much. Kash Patel didn't do much. The American people are, like I said, they're sick of it with the Epstein files. They're sick of it with JFK.
Yeah.
They're sick of it with everything in between. And now is not the time to do another cover up. Now's the time to be as transparent as possible. And I think that's why we're seeing this great demand.
Listen, with so many things, we may not know what's going on. We may not have an answer for it, but we know what we're getting told is just not right. It's just that doesn't add up. None of it adds up. It doesn't make sense. And that's not me claiming this person did it or that person did it or this government did it or this one did it. It's just that, to me, the Tyler Robinson story, the way it's being sold to us, that's just not it. That's not it. There's no way. Now, maybe I'm not saying he's not even involved in some type of capacity, but the way we're being sold the story is just not it.
George, are you familiar with the conservative OG story that I ran at the end of last year, beginning of this year? Did you hear any about the social media influencers from the right?
Is this the Israeli $7,000 a post thing from Bibi Netanyahu? Or
no. So that's a whole other part of the story, but that's not part of what I reported on. So originally what I reported on was there was this account called Conservative OG, and they were paying people to help get Trump elected. But what ended up happening was they were really offering a ton of money for these posts, getting involved with groups like Kalshi, which was a betting on politics. But when I uncovered everything, guess who they were promoting and managing their social media? Well, Dan Bongino.
Yeah, well, he was involved in Parler, and I got my Parler account wiped out. He was involved in Rumble, I think. So that's interesting. And, you start thinking, wait a minute, are these all collection ops? Are these all collection ops? And now I just suck it all in, directly from the database. I don't have to hack in. I own the servers, and I just do a backup on all your stuff. And it is a little bit disquieting. His back end relationships do seem like they're targeted at the right. It does seem like Flynn has similar connections, David Petraeus. They seem to have, present themselves as patriots and all this with their podcasts and so forth. But in the back end, the metadata, it looks like a collection operation.
Yeah, I was actually offered Michael General Flynn's network back in May, and I'll speak about this publicly right now because I have really no aspirations of getting famous off anything. But his new director for Patriot TV reached out to me, said that they loved my show, enjoyed my work. Would I do 4 days a week on the network? And told me we got one problem. Michael Flynn owns the network, and I said, well, wait a minute. I just did a whole expose exposing conservative OG, and I had a whole network of people writing to me saying, be careful because General Flynn, this is part of his networks. And I couldn't prove it, but I had this. And so I thought, are they trying to silence me? So after a few weeks of asking them to kind of wait it out so I could pray about it and figure out if it was the right decision, they came back to me and said I was too harsh on Donald Trump. I said, what do you mean I was too harsh on Donald Trump? So, well, you're going about his executive orders. And, we don't want you to regret your vote for Donald Trump on your show. And so, well, wait a minute. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent journalist. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm going to go through things. I'm like, if that's the case, this isn't the network for me. And then furthermore, I don't want to be tied to Michael Flynn. Because as soon as I do that, then people are going to start questioning, what is my motives? Why am I reporting the stories? And that I think is the best thing I ever did because I believe they were watching my work at the time and were going, how do we control this? Mm-hmm. How do we bring him into the fold? And that is the evil network that I will call it what it is. It's evil because it's a land of disillusionment that Americans live in where they raise these figures up as if they're some godlike figure. And he used Christianity in order to do so. And I think it's downright dangerous to do this because if you can manipulate people on one of the most holy things, which is their faith, and get them to follow you, then somebody like me sharing even just this story, you're going to dislike me because I'm going against your savior. Your savior should be God, ladies and gentlemen. It should be Michael Flynn. It shouldn't be a politician. And once you do that, you can't have the conversation we're having tonight about what are the possibilities because you're allowing other people to start clouding the conversation. The search for truth does not lie in networks of people that are social media influencers. The search for truth lies in the nitty-gritty details of data that cannot lie and suspicions and saying, I have a hunch, I'm going to follow up on it. And George, that's what I love about what you're doing. Katie has spent her time cutting her teeth on true crime on TikTok, and she amassed millions of views following old cases and breaking into them. And I love the fact that now she's getting into this side. Because I think that what she learned in true crime is going to help her open her eyes.
It helped me see things the way it was instead of what was being sold. If you know the end of a lot of these true crime cases, you know something along the line isn't right. So if you know that, you know how to spot it out when it's happening in real time.
Yeah, I would agree totally on Mike Flynn. I was with Mike Flynn that's where I met Kash Patel and had a chance to meet with him. And I saw this operation with Reawaken America as a collection operation as well. You have all the names, you have the vendor information, you have if somebody's buying weapons or not, ammunition or not, if they're a hunter or not, or a target shooter or not. It's mainly around people with guns. Their Second Amendment is the big thing. Patriot News Network seemed very in Franklin, or maybe it was just Nashville, seemed very state sponsored. And it just seemed like a collection network. I don't think that these military figures that started the National Clandestine Service, started a spy service for the United States, should then be all of a sudden sheep dipped into being religious leaders, like you said. That seems very, but somehow he pulls it off. Somehow he goes to the events and he pulls it off. But I would just say that's not who the leader should be. The leader should be somebody who's taught Sunday school and come up through the religious ranks. It shouldn't be somebody who came up through the military intelligence ranks. It seems like a military intelligence operation. Same thing with Bongino. I would like to see people of faith. This happens with Rob McCoy at TPUSA Faith, inside TPUSA. Candace and Charlie were on a trajectory of protect the First Amendment, Magna Carta, Bill of Rights. Here's the, founding documents of the United States, Declaration of Independence, Constitution. And all of a sudden, TPUSA faith comes in, and it's about building the third temple in Jerusalem. It's about Shabbat Shalom and all these other, Charlie wanted you to be a Jew and all this stuff. It was like, wait a minute here. This is a turning point of their organization toward Israel. And I'm pro-Israel, but I'm not that pro-Israel.
Yep,
Yeah,
I agree.
So that's the point I wanted to make there is I think your metadata analysis of the military infiltration into these religious networks is very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wanted to share it. I had people reach out. I'm just looking at the comments. Like somebody asked me, "Do you know Tori Maris?" So yeah, I've actually spoken with Tori directly about my conservative OG story. She reached out to me, messaged me, gave me some information. She was pretty impressed with what I was able to uncover. I'm familiar with her work as well. That's all. I'll leave it at that. But yes, I've had conversations with her before. We don't know each other that well, though. Katie.
Can I ask some rapid fire questions that I've been holding back deep
Go for
within
it.
my
That's why I
soul,
wanted to do
trying
that.
not to interrupt?
Well, I was going to ask you, is this question time? Let's go for it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so if you are in control of Operation Paperclip, where better to implant the scientists that you are taking out of that country so they don't go to an opposition? Where is the best place at that time period you would insert those scientists and chemists in America?
Well, the National Science Laboratories is where they went, and we've followed. We've gone to all the National Science Laboratories. MITRE, you may remember, was Nellie Orr, and one of her underlings was Lisa Page, with the Lovers, and with Peter Strzok, right? So the place I want my spies to go are the national organizations, especially if they're working for Israel, let's say, and Israel keeps them from the gallows in Nuremberg. Now you owe me. Skorzeny is one of the first ones I would point out that was working for Mossad, even though he was a Nazi. And so you look at places like Fort Bliss, missiles. Of course, there was Cape Canaveral. Of course, there was the Missile and Space Defense in Huntsville. Columbus with the bioweapons, with Battelle in Columbus. We've gone to a lot of them. The nuclear facilities like Hanford for infiltration there. Idaho National Laboratories for the small nukes for submarines. We've gone and covered that. So all of the cutting edge defense technologies covered the Tomahawk missile in Arizona are the places where you want your spies, and that's where they ended up.
Did Operation Paperclip begin MK Ultra and all the subsidiary programs?
Yeah, a lot of these things came out of the testing that they did on Jews in the death camps, and we followed the experiments. A lot of them were continued on Black people in Tuskegee because it was after the 20s, but then also on Indian reservations. A lot of them were done on prisoners. I can talk about various experiments, plutonium experiments on the Arkansas state prisoners, anthrax experiments on Ohio prisoners. So it's just dealing with these different governors. I was just up in Hamilton in Montana for the flea and tick and all those Rockefeller things up there. So there's been all of those programs and the programs from the Unit 731 in Japan also were continued in the United States. So they brought those experiments to Plum Island in Long Island. They brought all these experiments were brought here and weaponized through vectors like either fleas and ticks and so forth, or tried to be aerosolized by this thing at Fort Detrick, which was called the bubble, the 8-ball, they called it, trying to aerosolize these things. So all these things happened directly out of the Nazi bioweapons experiments. A guy named Strughold was the guy who did it.
I was just going to ask you about the making it airborne, because Operation Sea Spray, something similar to Operation Sea Spray, happened with the MK Ultra subsidiary programs, right? Where they ended up making it airborne, or tried to make it airborne to dose a whole town.
Yeah, they happened in San Francisco. It happened in the Pentagon,
Yes.
where they tried to dope the air filters. But MK Ultra was sort of, Alan Dulles' pet, his mentee was Richard Helms, and Richard Helms ran the CIA later on, but he was the one who ran all of MK Ultra, and he ran the Monarch program, the original Truth Serum program, which was run out of with Montreal with
Cameron, Dr. Cameron something.
All of a sudden, I'm spacing on his name, but they they wanted a truth serum, but then they wanted to run the other things like, they wanted to run like spies, like the Manchurian Candidate type programs, like the Tyler Robinson. Let's see if we can make him into a crazy shooter.
Yeah.
Assassins programs and all that. All that was run by Richard Helms. He destroyed almost all the information regarding the program.
Do you think those experiments are still going on today?
I think there is around the trans experiments are continuing. They have to figure out what are the issues that will cause someone to suspend rational thought and act violently. And someone denying you what you believe is your choice turns out to be one of the it's like, and also when people feel like their children are being attacked.
Yeah.
All logic goes out the window, and it's like maximum response. And that's what the triggered response is what it's called. And that's what the military is interested in, is the maximum triggered response. And that's why I think they're putting so much emphasis on this transgender, even though, it happens every once in a while.
Statistically, it's very, very low.
It's very low. And and they've not had success with the program, but they keep pushing it. They keep trying to get us to believe this. Is it a billionaire who's trying to keep a war going on for 20 years, the DuPont family, who's been involved in every war since the revolution? Or is it this person over here with his boyfriend that is building these Temu trinket little piles in there? And that's why they killed Charlie Kirk, because of the Temu trinkets. And this Tricky Tom telling you it's Temu trinkets. Is that really even a motive? I mean, this is the craziest investigation ever.
It's insane. It makes no sense. Now, we talked about it being a statistic. It's a very small statistic. It's almost a statistical anomaly when you look at Hollywood and you look at the children of Hollywood. I mean, statistically speaking, that just doesn't make sense.
Well, again, very beautiful people, in Hollywood tend to be the best people to use to do compromise. And once you do compromise somebody, the Musketeer Club is a good example. Now I own major stars, I own political people. I own people who run major corporations. And all I needed was a few Musketeers, so that's been around since, since the CIA was formed.
But how are they convincing these Hollywood stars to do it? I mean, Megan Fox, I believe, has 3 kids that identify differently. How is she convinced to do that? Because statistically, you can't have 3 transgender children. It can't happen.
Well, the other thing is they could be part of a program, an influencer program, to say you don't have to be a girl. Let's say a boy, you don't have to be until we just come and do a photo shoot. You can live your regular life as you want, but every once in a while you have to do the Bruce Jenner thing where you have to say, I was the best male athlete in the world, and now I want to be a woman. They want these people, especially men, to become women because there's now an allotment, a fairness allotment for women to be hired in key positions. So you go right to the top if you can introduce a female candidate. In some cases, I don't think it's that way anymore. I think because women are kind of coming up in terms of parity, but not there yet. But I mean, we're closer than when I was, your age, So, but the CIA has just poured so much money into this, males into females, because males, biological males, think differently than biological females.
Yeah.
and they can be made to be, let's say, sexual lures if they're, effeminate enough. But then they also have this can be violently triggered, like a male can. So it's a much better assassin. I can get to the target with the female lure, and then I can get the violent response that I need.
You can do kind of both. It kind of ends up being a kind of a little bit of a Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, it's what all the other options kind of went by the wayside, but the last Manchurian Candidate option that they're really pushing is this trans shooter, trans killer.
Yeah. What can I ask you what you think of Brigitte Macron?
Well, yeah, sure. I don't think it's what Candace thinks.
No, do I.
Okay. Which part of what Candace thinks? I mean, it's kind of twofold.
Well, it's along with what we've been talking about, that there was a trans. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your line, Greg.
No, keep going.
Well, she says there's, she was a man and then she was converted over to a female, and that's somehow a big story. I don't think that's a big story. I mean, there's a lot of female conversions, even if people run the country, who cares?
Correct.
But it becomes more important when you look at her background. Just out of just coincidence, I played basketball in Bamberg, Germany. That was one of the places where the Nazis had these kind of experiments on animals and also experiments on mental health patients in Bamberg. And the fact that her family ends up going from Germany to Amiens, France, near NATO headquarters after World War II, under the cover of being chocolatiers, is really weird. It seems like more of a Nazi paperclip to NATO headquarters move than it does Bamberg chocolate to French chocolate. That, there's not a lot of French families that go across the border, German families that go across the border and become French.
Yeah. Do you think her uncovering the actual true details of her history and her family's lineage was kind of the tipping point in that entire? I think so too. Absolutely.
Yes.
I think
it kicked over the paperclip. It kicked over the paperclip background of the Macrons. And that's why they're putting the hit team out on it, not because of the fact that she may be transgender. Now, I also think that she's more of a tutor for Macron, being 24 years older, because he's as dumb as a block of rocks, a box of rocks, and he needs a tutor. He can't change his clothes, he can't dress himself. He needs her. But he's a Rothschild banker and all this stuff. I mean, he couldn't have done any of that. He's like little Lord Fauntleroy. He's been combed. His hair's been combed for him ever since he's a little kid. So I do think she performs an important function for France, and I do think Candace indirectly, with becoming Brigitte, kicked this over this paperclip history.
Statistically, what do you think the chances are that the French Legionnaires were really planning to kill Candace?
I think very good. I've covered how the French Legionnaires, everybody thinks it's everybody from France, but it's really a grab back bucket of all kinds of assassins from all kinds of countries that can't get into the special forces in their own country. So they just migrate to where they can get paid. And that's near Marseille. I went to their headquarters. So it's, I followed a French Foreign Legion murder, and they typically use them when there's secrets being exfiltrated, and they have to kill the person who's exfiltrating the secrets, but they can't make it public. And this was near CERN in Switzerland, and they killed this whole family, this Iraqi family who was stealing secrets from the atomic weapons establishment in England and giving them to Iraq. So I know it exists. I know there is these hit teams, and Candace, she had the money transfer of $1.5 million to Canada. She had the team flying around.
Yeah,
that's pretty specific. I mean, I tend to take that fairly seriously.
And what would be the reason why the government doesn't? I'm so sorry, Greg. I could sit here and ask questions, but
rapid fire is good.
What would be the reason why the U.S. government didn't take her seriously? I take it seriously. You take it seriously. Anybody who studied these things can take it seriously. Why not the government?
Because if I have a sanctioned program, and that's what it's called, if I have a military secret sanction program where I am allowed to take out people with no questions asked if they are working in a national security situation and they're giving it to, let's say, a Russian spy, I don't want that to hit the newspapers, but I have to kill the guy before he goes out on a date with the Russian, honeypot lure. Right? I need to either go through the normal channels in the United States, which means I'm not going to be in time before the secrets, or I can just bring in my hit team from Israel, or and I could fly them around on the Egyptian jet or the French Foreign Legion to do the hit. You see these guys that their cars explode in Washington D.C. Yeah, there's no description or no follow up. Those are the kind of things that happen with the sanctioned program. And there's no question in my mind, we use other intelligence services like Mossad to do hits here in the United States, and they use us, over there.
That's the reality of it. And a lot of people want to think that that's a conspiracy, but that's the actual reality.
That's the actual reality. That's the actual reality.
Now that she's publicized this so much, and people that didn't even know what the French Legionnaires were can tell you now, do you think that plan is still plausible? Or do you think the plan, because now if something happens to her, well, we know exactly where to look?
I think it's very much still in play. When somebody has a hit contract on you, it's sort of like you have a contract to go get a trophy, and you're going to pay $1 million for anybody who can bring back a 18-point buck. Does the hunter go, well, I didn't get one on the first day, I guess I'm going to quit now? No, the hunter goes, I got the maps, I'm following, I'm tracking. So I would be very wary if I was Candace Owens. I think she's correctly identified the threat, and I think the threat still exists.
But how do they pull something like that off with as much publicity as on that? Like, if anything happens to her outside of a natural cause at this point, how does that change? How does the narrative of what happened change to kind of cover that up? Or do you think they just don't care?
Well, I think they're trying to breadcrumb her away from, Pierre DuPont. The number one thing is to protect the assets, the money. So breadcrumbing her toward Fort Huachuca is what I think is happening right now. I think they can throw in a Russell Brand every once in a while to throw things, just to do a Looney Tune kind of thing to mess the mix up.
So the Fort Huachuca thing, do you think that's a breadcrumb? You think that's a planned diversion for her?
I do. I mean, I've been talking about Fort Huachuca for 9 years, and Mike Flynn at the 111 with the encrypted communications. I talked about Farnas and Fruman that got their BlackBerries, their encrypted communications there as DEIA informants. So we've been following it a long time. But for it to come out right in the week where we're going to go talk about the DuPonts, I can show you the message from Candace that I received. Yay. I didn't reach out to her. She reached out to me, and she wanted to know about the DuPonts and follow up on that piece. And that's when all these Fort Huachuca stuff started coming out of the woodwork. And I just find that timing. First, it was Russell Brand on Monday. Maybe the Fort Huachuca story wasn't ready yet on Tuesday. But let me, I'm trying to do two. Oh, here she is. Okay. But this is her message to me. She reached out to me. I didn't reach out to her. Whoops. Sorry. If you go, let me go this way. I don't know if you can read that.
I cannot.
I think I can. I'll hold on, back it up a little right there. I'm new to the DuPont thing. Would love for you to give me a rundown on everything if you can spare some time to speak this weekend. It was Pierre DuPont, TPUSA, had billions on the line with. And then you wrote back. Yep.
Yeah. And so my point is billions, somebody being offered $1 billion in the week before their death is sort of like a mafia ultimatum. And it's like, Sollozzo, I'm going to put you in Staten Island. Okay. It's going to be profitable for you. And if Sollozzo says yes, he lives, with Michael Corleone. But if Sollozzo says, no, I'm going to compete with you in Manhattan, that's going to be bad for your health. That's going to be Luca Brasi when you're going to swim with the fishes. That was the sort of, this is why I say the thing that you would naturally follow in a murder investigation which would be like big money offers and things changing hands, or the
Mhm.
Doge audit, have been ignored. And we've been talking about these Timu trinkets, that they're building this little pile of Timu trinkets in Twiggs's apartment. And it's like, are you kidding me? That's the motive for killing Charlie Kirk? It's not
Yeah.
these $1 billion offers, not this Doge audit.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we have to spend more time.
If you could be a fly on the wall to the conversation that Erica and Candace had on Monday, I mean, obviously you would think that Candace brought all of this proof to her. How do you think that conversation ended? Like, do you think Erica was like, oh, there's something here? Because I don't doubt her positioning, or Erica's positioning, where she's like, my husband was just murdered, like, stop making a big deal of it. But after Candace presents to her everything she has and why she thinks what she thinks, how do you think that conversation ends?
My question wouldn't be for Candace or Erica. My question would be for Justin Strife, who was also in that meeting,
Mhm.
which is, why did you call Pierre DuPont the first thing when Charlie Kirk was killed? How long have you known Pierre DuPont? Has he come to the donor meetings? What's the relationship? How much money a year does Pierre DuPont give?
Yeah.
That, you know, what was the exact nature, since you were the one who called him, you're the one who orchestrated this, what was the exact nature of the thing?
Do you think she asked that question?
No, I don't think she did. I think it's the most important question to ask.
Yeah.
And so I keep saying it, but I'm like, how could you be with Justin Strife for 4.5 hours and not ask that question?
Yeah.
And that is the key question. She's going to get to it, I think. I'm not the guest tomorrow on Fort Huachuca. They're going to bring on this guy who I think is National Clandestine Service. And
Interesting.
so, you know, I have a 25-year agreement not to talk about, because he discovered the tunnel, the original tunnel for
at the border.
At the border with the Mexican gangs. He was working in DEA. I work with Jeff Prather, who worked in DEA on the border. And then all of a sudden 25 years is up, and now all of a sudden I can talk again. And I just happened to go down to Fort Huachuca, and I stumble on this operation, you know, a day before Charlie Kirk's going to be murdered. That seems, the timing there seems
where he saw Harpool.
Right. Yeah. It's
forget.
just like 25 years, and you've been out of the loop, and all of a sudden now you're back there the day before Charlie Kirk is killed. I think is very tantalizing. As a reporter, you want to go cover that, but the timing of it is just too crazy. And again, it seems like a manufactured thing to get away from Pierre DuPont.
Yeah.
In my mind,
people are so interested in it, and it's really because, and I think the everyday person that is interested in this, it becomes like, oh, we'll just call Candace crazy, and if they're, you know, following Candace, whatever. I think people miss the fact that it's not, people aren't necessarily paying attention to this because they think everything Candace has said is true. It's because what we're being told just simply does not make sense. And people really did care about Charlie Kirk and his messaging so much that when it comes to brass tacks, that's what people want to know. They want to know the truth about what happened, no matter where that truth leads them. And it's not about accusing one entity or another entity. It's about figuring out what happened to somebody that they truly admired. Totally off the Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens thing. Is Kash Patel's girlfriend a honeypot?
well, I don't think she's a Mossad honeypot like she's been accused of. I don't think she's ever been to Israel. I do think she's quite a bit younger. And I do think it's interesting that it is in the Daily Wire. You know, she's in the Daily Wire, which is based in, you know, Franklin and the whole music scene in Nashville. Again, I think there are true believers. You know, she sings at all the TPUSA events. She sings the national anthem at all the TP. She's had a long relationship with TPUSA. I just think it's odd that he falls in love with this 20-year younger woman just at the time he's about ready to investigate TPUSA.
Yeah,
you know?
Why isn't that a conflict of interest?
It is a conflict of interest.
How's he the guy? How's he the guy?
Yeah, he should say, look, I can't do this because, you know, and maybe that's what Bongino is going to say is, hey, we should be investigating. And I couldn't because Kash was too busy listening to this country music sensation who's singing the national anthem for TPUSA events. I mean, it's right out of why, Hoover didn't investigate Lucky Luciano and Al Capone is because he's sitting next to them at Gulfstream Park and they're giving they're giving him horses that are going to win the next race, and he's cleaning up at the betting window. That's why he didn't investigate those guys. So it smacks that bad. It doesn't look good.
It's comical almost. I mean, you can't write something. You can't write something that bad.
It is bad. It just seems like the Daily Wire and I'm working with a person in Nashville who Joel started the company with. So I'm getting the inside information of all the dirt. In Nashville, it's worse than it's worse than the Nashville music thing on Netflix. It's the dirt. It does seem like a honeypot situation. I mean, just clearly, how did it end up being a TPUSA person that sings the national anthem for TPUSA, and all of a sudden, here we are.
And maybe it's clouding his judgment a little bit, because the Brown University case that he's also won, it just seems to be another absolute catastrophe.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of these are. I think what you said earlier about a triggered response. Mm-hmm. There are certain things that they know will trigger somebody. And if you can present information, and they do this in psychological operations right before a battle to say that these people deserve to be killed. And they tell it to them right before that so that they won't hesitate in terms of killing. Mm. And it's the same thing with these triggered responses. I think they know what things will cause somebody to go, I'm going to get that guy, Yeah. And, I don't know about Australia, and I don't Bondi Beach, and I don't know about Brown, but I think they're getting very good at this.
Yeah. Well, without even knowing about Brown, what do you think about the fact that we're 5 days out and we still have a suspect at large, and there was no helos flying anywhere in the area during the critical manhunt hours? I mean, without, knowing about it, what do you think about that entire thing and how it's played out? I can't believe that there's still somebody at large on this.
Well, I went to Rhode Island with my ex-partner. We stopped at Brown on the way to visit Mike Flynn and how close he lived to Nellie Orr. And we did a story on the patriarchal crime family and the whole Boston, Rhode Island connection. So I my theory of it is that they got somebody who is like a, Whitey Bulger type of guy who's got a life sentence already. And they said, look, we can give you a weekend pass, and, or you can get the death penalty or go back to the thing, but we'll look on you favorably if the right things happen. I think it's going to be one of those kind of compromise situations. I don't think it's going to be one of these, because it happened. It just seemed like it was diverting attention away from Charlie Kirk. Same with Bondi Beach. It seems like it was almost time to divert attention. So I say it's going to be a Whitey Bulger type of guy that they talked into doing this. It's not going to be a Tyler Robinson guy, but we'll figure it out. Would it make
sense that it was maybe like hypothetically like a student, a TA, a professor, that they could talk into doing something like that by just appealing to their lived experiences and such? Would that make sense?
I mean, you could have an agent say, this person over here denied you your entry into graduate assistantship because you were trans, and they don't believe that's right. And I just want to let you know that's why you didn't get the professorship or whatever. It's easy to plant false information with somebody to trigger them. If you already have a bevy of people that are triggerable, you have a database of these people. Armed Queers was the ones that we were looking at in Salt Lake City, which was they're on a knife's edge already.
They were also in Colorado, correct? The school shooting that happened, that was connected. That same group was connected.
Yeah, and they do a lot of gun rights for LGBTQ outreach, and so they have these meetings at various state capitals and so forth. And so that's what they attract, is they're attracting people and collecting like a backbench of these people that then later can be, triggered.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an MK Ultra. It's sort of the evolution of MK Ultra, I think.
Whew. I could be here all night. I might have to slide into your DMs like Candace did. You don't have to answer me or anything like that, but I know I have like 1,000 questions for you. I'm just
Yeah, I like the
picking your
rapid
brain.
fire. I like the rapid fire because it's good. I can, a lot of people ask me these questions, and now I can get it all out there.
Yeah, no, I have a million more where those came from. I promise you that.
So I have like three things, maybe four things to add. And then in my other ear, I was trying to listen to Trump because he just started speaking to see what's going on, but I'll get to that in a few moments.
Did he mention Venezuela yet?
Not yet, but I want to pay attention here, but
Yeah.
I also want to honor in case there's breaking news, we're going to war or something, that we can make sure we get people. George, there's a couple things that came up. One, somebody wrote to me that I'm friends with, that has followed my show for a while, but like just really a good friend since I was a child. And they said, you're being manipulated the way that Donald Trump wanted to manipulate you. When he released his statement about Rob Reiner the other day, I can't help but go, yeah, you're right. I fell for it. Because you're correct. There is the psychological side of the way things get posted. It's meant to manipulate us. It's meant to give us a visceral reaction. And sometimes it's important for us to let the noise be noise. And I find it sometimes hard to cut through what is the noise and what should I be commenting on. So I guess my question for you is, how do you, throughout your career, how do you decide what is the noise and what is meant to trigger you into covering something that you shouldn't cover?
Yeah, I look for a triggered response is works for everybody, not just mass shooters, but this getting you to not use your rational faculties and your gray matter, and getting you to use your amygdala and respond emotionally like you're a lizard, striking, this is what people sit around the Pentagon all day and at Fort Bragg trying to do. What kind of story could we come up with? What kind of tweet could we come up with that'll get people to say something violent? This is happening with the security people around Candace Owen. They're sprinkling all this suspicion, and then you're going to say something. Somebody's going to say something horrible about somebody at TPUSA. And then TPUSA, I know this for a fact, Tim Pool has let the cat out of the bag. They are planning a massive counter lawsuit against people who have said things against the security. So that's why I've said, no, don't say anything about the domestic security.
Yeah.
Yep. Smart.
Focus on these people that are coming in from overseas. That's where the assassins are going to come from. But they're going to use it as an extortion campaign. TPUSA is planning on using this social triggered responses regarding their security people as a extortion campaign in the hundreds of thousands of people that they're collecting. So I just want to warn people on that topic. But anything that looks so over the top, like the Trump comment about Rob Reiner, I just said, oh, that's triggered response. That's trying to get me to. And then what I always do is do the opposite, saying, oh, I actually like Rob Reiner a lot as meathead. Yep. I think he's kind of great. Just make sure you're out there recording yourself as not being triggered. I kind of like Rob when he had that one scene with Archie. Just have a milquetoast response, and that way you won't get in the fishnet.
So the other part, like I got three more things here. So that goes into the Epstein blackmail, the Diddy operation, which I think was an intelligence operation as well. The reason why we're never going to have anything on Epstein, it's you got to look at the fact that it was completely, just as you were talking about the whole Disney thing to blackmail people in Hollywood, it was to get some of the elites completely compromised. And what's really funny is when Pam Bondi came out and she brought all those influencers, the approved people from X and everything, she gives them the binder. I'm looking at this going, I have everything in that binder
page.
Except I have it where it's not crossed
Not redacted.
out. Not redacted.
Yeah.
And I did that because I was researching it for years.
Yeah.
And it really, that's where I was like, it's all a show.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, I've known it, but it's all a show. But as you try to uncover the things that are a show and you bring back the curtain, I don't think people realize how dangerous the world is. Like covering the Hunter Biden laptop was kind of scary for me here in Delaware, because I knew that I was going up against a really powerful family. So my question for you, especially to help Katie as she's getting into this work a little bit more intensive, how does George stay safe when you're doing this type of work for all these years? What has been the thing that cover your ass, so to speak, to make sure that you're not a target?
Well, I have 2 dead partners, so I'm not maybe the best person to ask, but
Oh, Lord.
yeah.
Thanks for the advice.
Yeah. So
I want you to hear this, Katie.
but but having said that, and why they died, I think a dead man switch really helps a lot. I have 500,000, more than 500,000 names at TPUSA. So if the class action I'm doing against TPUSA, if I get, somebody sends a hitman out for me, it's worse for them. So make it worse for the people that are sending hitmen than if you live. It only adds to credibility and to the class action if they kill you. That would be my first piece of advice. But on the other one with Jenny Moore Task Force, my first person that died, she just went whole hog into this Operation Blackjack in Wilmington and the trial trafficking that went along with it and everything. And she just went like a bull in a china shop. I mean, in a good way. I'm trying to say that. But if you're too aggressive, you get killed. If you're a little bit a day and just kind of keep a little bit more every day, you get the whole story out. But there's a lot less chance. Like I'm going to break a big story on Monday. That's never good because that means your Saturday and Sunday are going to be very dangerous.
Yeah.
So I would just say that with Brian Lloyd, who I worked with National Press Club in Washington, he had the fast cancer after he said it was a military live exercise. He just was working in a very dangerous area, working with people at Fort Belvoir, working at people who were aerosolizing, as Katie mentioned, aerosolizing anthrax. Mm-hmm. That's just real dangerous. And to say that they would take something that they were working on in Pakistan, working on in Afghanistan, then that group had a relationship with Wuhan and they were aerosolizing there, and then they were going to bring that in to stop Trump in his reelection. I mean, that is so explosive. It's just the 2 black doctors we covered in Fort Belvoir that were murdered in the front yard. I mean, there's some topics that are just so explosive that you just don't want to, you just kind of want to do a little bit every day, but not all at once.
Well, I'm going to give you something that's explosive that I'm just curious about. I'm going to throw a conspiracy out there that I've heard and just how possible that this could be. Looking at Charlie Kirk, looking at Butler, PA, you see some similarities. You see some things going on. You have to question Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, the way that they have, looks like they've just ran things for the administration into the ground to make sure that there's no information on Epstein, no information on Butler, Matthew Crooks, no information really coming out excellent, about other things, almost too clean of information in text messages, which has led many people that follow my show that ask me, do I think that the Trump administration has staged the assassination attempt in Butler? And do I think that the Trump administration took out Charlie Kirk for their own gain? That's a dangerous, dangerous assertion, but I got to be honest. It's starting to kind of trend, and I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Well, Trump is very close. I mean, our show is close to Israel. I do a show with the Super Jew. We just got back from 6 weeks at a kibbutz. So, I mean, it's like I'm pro-Israel, but I do think Trump is thinking about his kids. Once he got reelected, he's thinking about Gaza and Justin, his son-in-law, who's close to Bibi Netanyahu, about redeveloping the Gaza. He's thinking about, Eric Trump. He's thinking about Barron. These are all business partners that he's suggesting that are all Israeli. And I think Charlie was getting in the way of Gaza. He was going to start talking against Gaza. And I think that Shillman and Ackman, 2 major donors, expressed their, the fact that they didn't like that. So I think it's the Israeli influence with Trump that's really changed. Howard Lutnick, right. The Treasury Secretary, Bessent has long history with working financial manipulation with George Soros. So I just think it's the insiders in the cabinet that are doing these things. and using Trump as the hammer to do them.
Yeah, and I guess I should have been clear to say, when I say Trump administration, I mean the people in the background, the hands that are moving, because
Not him.
Not him. No.
Yeah.
I should be very specific on that. And the reason why I feel that way too is like, we talk about the DuPonts at the very beginning and their influence going all the way back to the Revolutionary War. The same thing can be said right now with the people that are surrounding Trump as far as these tech billionaire oligarchs, the Peter Thiels, right? All the Palantir stuff that's going on. And to me, it's almost like somebody said to Trump, hey, we got close. Follow what we need. Get these objectives in. Trump's doing his thing, making sure that he's got his objectives done. But there's almost like, hey, we'll protect you. Just don't step out of line on this. We need this done. And somebody in the comments wrote that he felt like a Trojan horse. Yeah, my co-host on America Emboldened, he said that a while ago. He's like, are we going to see a Trojan horse presidency where we're electing the first term Trump and we're getting something that's a compromised Trump after the assassination attempt? And I would say that is a valid concern. Very valid.
Yeah, it's shooting you in the ear is a good way to say we can shoot you between the eyes. We just didn't decide to do that this time. I remember he was talking about peace and ending the war in Ukraine, and then the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, and he did an immediate about face, talking about we can win this, and Russia's weak, it's a paper tiger, and all of a sudden the rhetoric changed immediately. We were right back in the NATO camp, for let's make this a 20-year war. So I think the assassination, like you said, with Lincoln or with McKinley or, with all of these different presidents that didn't go in the direction that the DuPonts wanted, they ended up, in a funeral parade or procession. So I think that's really what we're talking about here is if the politicians don't do what you want to do, it's pretty easy to take them out. If you have a couple of insiders, what they're doing, where their whereabouts are, and it's very dangerous. You could just leave a roof open anytime you want, like Lincoln. They just said, okay, we're going to just have one guy, and he's going to like to go get a drink at intermission, and the door's going to be left unlocked. And so you still need to get the John Wilkes Booth, but you only need a lone gunman, at that point.
Did Crooks take that shot, and did he miss on purpose? Like that's another one. I know you've covered that extensively also, but how does that play out? How does that happen?
Well, I think the first shot was, the sonic qualities of it was subsonic, and I think it was a drone. We placed the Raytheon counter drone guy there. And Crooks, again, I went and interviewed with the Butler County, and they said Beaver County is the one that had the volunteer snipers. Beaver County is Greg Nickel and all them, Tony Guy. They were the ones covering that roof. So that volunteer nature of Crooks never came out. If you remember, Corey Comparatori, who looks a little bit like an Iranian, was pulled out of the crowd and placed in the firing line with Trump before the thing. And it could be they said, we're watching this guy to Crooks for the briefing and send him. That's why we don't have the phone. We think this is the Iranian assassin, and they send him a picture of Corey Comparatori, and here's where he's sitting. And so now here's Crooks saying, okay, if I get called, I got to get up there and I got to take out Corey Comparatori. If you look at Crooks's fire, it's more at Corey Comparatori to make sure that he takes that threat out. The two guys that get hit behind him are in the line of Corey Comparatori. And that's why I say the Trump thing is more a warning, and then Corey Comparatori, and then they shoot the guy who shot Corey Comparatori, and now the rest is history. So you can also get what you want, not necessarily killing the president, but making it real close.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what changed with Trump after that. I don't remember any big policy changes, but after Charlie Kirk got killed, the Ukraine war was back on.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, I've been following a little bit of Trump in my right ear, and it's all been border security, which goes to Taylor, our guest at 7:30 tonight.
What good timing that was.
Yeah, he's talking
Thank
all
you,
about
Taylor.
the mess of the border. and stopping inflation. Talked about the failures of the Biden years and how inflation hurt us. And he has not announced anything with Venezuela. So for anybody that was worried about war with Venezuela, as far as what I've been able to listen into, there's been no talk of that as of the first 15 minutes.
I'll take
so
it.
Just putting that out there for everybody.
I'm sticking with what I said earlier, which is drugs and the cartels and the idea of source reduction, which is the longer you wait in the supply chain, where I'm talking about illegal fentanyl from China, and it's landing in Venezuela, the longer you wait in the supply chain for it to come north, the harder it is to stop, the more directions it fans out into. And the whole idea of interdiction from Venezuela with the boats going to, the Costa Rica or El Salvador or whatever, that's the whole idea of the interdiction with DOD. So we'll see. Tune in to Trump and see if he says something about Venezuela.
I think it's going to happen here. We're gonna wrap up here in a few moments, George. But I think he's going to mention, only because the Epstein stuff's coming up on Friday too, and God, we need a great distraction right before that as well. Because wouldn't that just be absolutely
timely? It would be
timely.
so timely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think they also want to get off this Charlie Kirk thing, and I think if they could mention a few changes with Bongino and send him off tonight, maybe that's also something they throw in there. But border security leads directly into the drugs,
Right.
so I think that's where we're going. We'll see. Trump's made several overtures. When you start attacking boats
Right.
that are a couple of miles offshore, it's only a couple more miles to make landfall.
Exactly.
And then now you're talking 82nd Airborne and 101st Airborne, and that's what I think you're going to hear tonight to secure the ports. If you quarantine the ports, and I'll just throw this out as a possibility. If you quarantine the ports, you basically shut down the number one way, and you could say, look, we kept interdicting the boats. We're not going to interdict the boats anymore. We're going to just seize the ports. This is what the British did in the Revolutionary War, and it's been used in every interdiction program since then. And I think it makes the most logical sense, and we'll see if that's what's up. But Venezuela only has two major ports, with Caracas and I can't remember the other one. But we'll see.
So I just want to tell you that he just ended his speech. Nothing about Venezuela.
Okay.
All about how voters have got to take the financial stuff because finances are not going well and it needs to be addressed. That was the core crutch of his speech, from what I could tell. Obviously, I'll debrief and figure out if I missed anything along the way. But that was shocking. I was expecting it to go a different way.
That sounds like they cut the speech, because that's a nothing burger if there ever was. Trump's against the border. Trump's against illegal immigration.
So George, what I'm wondering if what just happened is this. So Trump puts out the thing about the Armada, largest ever surrounding South America, Venezuela. And then they're waiting for some type of diplomatic response. He schedules 48 hours ago a 9 p.m. presser. And maybe they got the diplomatic response that they wanted. And so he went with the speech, the secondary, because we know it's a show. We know that it's all smoke and mirrors. The art of the deal, so to speak, is what he's playing. And so you're probably right. He went with the audible at the last minute, because likely there's something with Venezuela that happened today that we're not privy to. And maybe that's a win for the United States. Yeah. Play it exactly the way it should.
I think that's a great analysis, because when Maduro hears that this president has scheduled, after he's blown up all these boats, right? Then he hears that he's scheduling time like Kennedy for Cuba. That's when shit happens, right? Yep. And he's okay. This might be not my last night. They know where I live. This drone attack. I'm curtains, and then they go. And what usually happens is advisors, or whatever you want to call it, agents, spies, verifying people in the ports to make sure that there's no contraband. That's probably what is in question here. And if Maduro's saying that's our sovereignty, you can't come, then Trump says, okay, well, here you go. So it just seems very much a nothing burger if it's just about the border. Yeah.
I agree. Well, George, as always, tonight has been a pleasure. You're always completely well informed on all of this. And you really are one of the best investigative journalists in the country. For those of you that are not following Real George Webb on X and following his work on social media, please go do so, because he's always breaking something. I feel like you're the most on top of anything, as well as he's constantly traveling the country to get to the source. So this isn't somebody like myself that makes phone calls around the country talking to businesses. He actually gets in the car and he travels and he meets with people face to face, gets the evidence, documents it, and posts it for everybody to see.
So cool.
Yeah.
I just got new tires today.
Nice.
I judge my how well I'm doing on how many shoes I go through and how many sets of tires I go through. But I also have a incredible network of 50,000 people that have contributed, citizen journalists around the world. And I wanted to just do a shout out to them and say thank you. And I'm at Real George Webb 1 on Twitter. I'm at georgewebb.substack.com on Substack.
Yep. And just to put up that screen for everybody that is not following already, there he is right there, his X page. You can Venmo him, thank him for appearing tonight. You can send a donation for the great work that he does. Is not funded by any big organization. He's 100% independent here in what he does. And he's also really kind to other journalists that are looking to do this work. He's mentored many people. I've had the pleasure of speaking with different individuals that speak very highly of you, George, and the fact that you've really been kind and saying, hey, here's the way to do this and do it the right way. And so that's appreciative.
And I want to say, knowing who you work for, I saw the Reclaim Ground. If you're working for the big guy, if you're working 100% for the big guy, not 10% Hunter Biden, if you're 100% for the big guy, everything's easy. You wake up every morning and you just say, I know who I'm working for. Here he is. And I want to do a shout out to Scott Adams and just for your health, Scott. We love you, brother, and hang in there.
Yeah, now Scott Adams, he's been going through it. For those that have coffee with Scott daily, you've seen, he's been going through the treatment, but his legs have not been working for him. They've been trying to get that back, and he's really been going through it. So yeah, from our thoughts and prayers as well to Scott. George, thank you so much for joining us here. I want to bring you back with Dr. Joseph Farrell.
I love Joseph Farrell.
Yeah, so he
I would love to meet him. He's so interesting.
Yeah, so he does a quarterly show on the American Emboldened podcast. And so I will bring you on with him. Katie, absolutely awesome. Come to the party. Katie, you can come on with Chris and myself.
I got the invite.
He is so smart. I love him.
He is one of my favorite humans. Talk to him all the time. And I just feel like he's a national treasure. But I do believe his research into the DuPonts and stuff, he's going to blow your mind with some of the stuff that he has. And
he
so
is amazing. Yeah. With the Nazi paperclip guy. Oh my God. He is amazing.
Yeah. No,
so I can't wait.
Yeah. Joseph Farrell, like every time I do a show with him, it's like my biggest show that I've ever done. So it's a blast. And so I'll bring you guys together. You can stream it to your audience as well and have a good time with it. Katie will bring you on. George, I wish you a Merry Christmas, a safe Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, all the holidays.
George, if you have 5 more minutes, can you hang around till we end the show? I have a question for you based on your background.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
That's fine. I'll just go in the.
We'll put you in the waiting room. We'll wrap quickly. Katie, it's been a blast.
I literally could have asked questions.
I know you could have. I know.
You're welcome for cutting it short.
And you're welcome for me bringing him on as a guest for you, because I knew you'd love having him on the show. Brian Shoup will be back in my chair next week. I'll go back to producing, but you can check out my podcast. Go to America Emboldened Presents, and you can see all the shows that I have. We're hosting Reclaim Ground on our network, but you can also see my show, Boulder with Bolden. You can see the Chris Michaels Show, After Dark with Rob Harper, the Constitution Study with Paul Engel, and you can find those shows with Dr. Joseph Farrell and stuff. So I just want to say thanks for letting me host today, Brian. Yeah. Katie, I hopefully didn't disappoint sitting in this seat, and I had a blast.
He's probably overseas right now, like, what did I do leaving those two?
Oh, no, it's okay. We had a blast tonight. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for checking everything out. We'll be back next Wednesday, 7 p.m. for another great show. Take care, everyone.
See ya.
Reclaim ground media, we're taking back the sound. Lifting up the truth until the walls come down. Voices for the kingdom, hope in every town. This is where the lost get found. On